the I'm a Fan Of podcast, music, comedy, and more.
Shahyan Jahani.
How's it going?
What's up, man?
How you doing?
I'm doing great, and
good?
I love how we started where we tried to make this earlier thing happen,
Yeah.
and then we ended up running
And
late
then we
instead.
just did it at 8 o'clock anyway. Jesus.
But it's good to see you, man. Like,
Man, yeah.
I was thinking about it on the drive up here because I keep running into you at, comedy clubs or something where there's 5 or 6 people around.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to ever get like a real conversation in when it's like after a show or something and there's people just hanging out because everybody's talking to everybody. And,
Yeah, everyone's kind of just mixing and mingling.
But the last time I saw you, I think it was at DCC. And do you remember when we were talking to Arun and he was talking about trying to like spark creativity and writing and all this? And he was talking about wanting to rock climb with you or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe one of the funniest things I've seen. Because he was talking to me about running, and he was talking to you about rock climbing, and we're like, yeah, man, we could do this, we could do that, like just get out of your comfort zone and do these things, and blah, blah, blah. And it was all this inspiring stuff. And then I'm sure you know the comic Greg Catapoti.
Yeah.
After you left and some other people left, he came up and he's like, Arun, he's like, so you want to write more, huh? And he's like, yeah, I need to write some more stuff. He's like, have you ever thought about just sitting down and writing?
That was actually a pretty good Greg Catapoti.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about just sitting down?
Maybe just writing.
Yeah.
And it's like both him and I just look at each other just like, God, it's fucking funny. Like, yeah, maybe try writing before you go rock climbing and running a marathon.
Yeah, but also like it's kind of like, where is inspiration going to hit you? Like Arun, I feel like he also like spreads himself. Oh, he doesn't spread himself. I feel like he puts a lot of pressure on himself, as do a lot of comics. But like Arun specifically, like if he's not writing something like topical or like current or something like that, like you can tell like who his muses are, who he really admires and who he likes and stuff like that. So when he's like, man, they're just writing like they're always doing new stuff, and then when he sees himself not doing that, and this is the same case for me, same case for a lot of comics, that we just sort of like, oh, I'm shit, like I'm not doing anything. When truth be told, I mean, if you're staying in the game, you're doing something. You ain't dead yet, so we're all good, right?
Yeah, it was just a thing. I can't stop thinking about that moment because I've always felt like make yourself uncomfortable, get in weird scenarios, and like learn a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
And then someone was like, and write also.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, yeah, you probably got to do that.
And then you got to
too.
write the ideas.
Yeah, you need to write too.
But I mean, like, I feel like there's so many, you can't, like, if you're rock climbing and then like an idea hits you, you can't just like plop off the wall and then like go write a 10-minute bit or something like that.
Yeah.
I feel like you like, the way I do it is I just jot ideas down as they come to me. And then if the idea is like titillating enough later, then I'll think about it, or I'll just spin something on stage. I'm terrible at writing a joke, like a joke formatted like setup and punch. I have to kick around an idea on stage and find out what's funny about it, and oftentimes that doesn't really happen until like way later, or something that I think is going to be a huge premise is just going to be whittled down to like nothing. So
yeah.
I mean, wherever it hits you. But I mean, Greg's advice is probably pretty sad. It's not necessarily you don't need to add more hobbies. You just need to pick up a fucking pencil. Or
Yeah,
something
like his
that.
whole thing was like, do the writing first, and then if you still suck at it, go do some other stuff. You know?
Yeah. If you get really frustrated and you go like break it up by rock climbing or something.
Yeah.
It's also fun. I mean, Arun also I feel like sometimes he puts a lot of pressure on himself to do a lot of things. Like he was telling me, he's actually been doing, to my knowledge at least, as of like a couple weekends ago, he did dry January and he was still dry, so he was still sober.
Okay.
Which is fantastic. But then he was rattling through all the rest of his goals that he like I was supposed to read 10 pages, I'm supposed to meditate, didn't do that. Like, and he's like telling me, and I was like, buddy, quit creating check boxes for yourself and just like focus on like a couple things that you really value. Like if you're really getting a lot of not drinking and you really feel like that's like propelling you forward, then just focus on that for a little while and fuck all to like, reading and then meditating and all stuff. When you create like, this is something I just kind of stumbled upon because I got back on Sunday from Italy.
Yeah.
And that for that week and a half, I'm completely out of my routine. And I didn't realize how long I had been in a routine and like not taking like anything longer than like a weekend vacation or like a few days. But everything, like when we got over there, time shifted. So like my meditation app time shifted. So it zeroed my streak out. And I had like a streak of like, 500 consecutive days or something like that. But when I saw that, I was like, for a moment, I was like, oh, fuck. I had like kind of a what I'd like into like an Arun moment. Like I failed. I fucked it up. I messed it up. And like,
I didn't do 501 days.
Yeah. Like I'm not like breaking my streak the next time. But then I was just like, why am I even like keeping track of this in the first? Like, what about me seeing that number and that little bar get bigger and bigger and bigger is really getting me any closer to getting good at like centering myself, which is essentially kind of like what meditating is. Like trying to
you're supposed to not care.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like when they gamify it like that, it's just like it makes people more neurotic about it. There are
but that's a smart app. That's the whole point. They're right. We need you to keep using
it every day.
Progress bar.
Accessing it every day. I'm sure if they run any ads, I'm sure they're making money off it. But like there were some days where I would just be so busy. It was like top to bottom, like 18-hour day, and I'm nonstop. And I was like, oh, I got to find time to meditate. And I would just play the tone of the meditation. It would run its 5 minutes, and when it was done, it would ring, and I'd be like, cool. And I'm like driving feverishly while like I'm way not meditating. I'm doing anything but. I've left it running when I've gotten to the gym to train people, and then I've got back to my phone, and it's been meditating for 2 hours. But really, I've just seen like 4 clients or something like that. Like I'm working.
I think the driving thing works though, because there's been times there was probably like maybe about a year ago for about 2 years. I was having really bad anxiety, and I'd never had any issues with that before. Yeah. And it was just a combination of a bunch of things, I guess. And I got, which meditation app was it? It's like, anyhow, it was one that, actually it wasn't an app. It was on Netflix. It was like, what's it called?
They have those,
I'll find it, but it's like Free Your Mind or something. It's a very popular one. I can't remember what it's called.
Fuck. I know what you're talking about that.
It'll come. Headspace, that's what it was. Yeah. And they have different, like short sessions and stuff. And I knew like there'd be like a 15-minute video that explained about meditation, but at the end would be like a 10-minute meditation thing that they do.
Okay.
And so I would just, if I was feeling anxious, but I had to drive somewhere and do it, it's like I would turn that on, and I felt like you still get a little by like zoning out and just like breathing, even though you're like hitting the blinkers, making turns. You're like, I'm trying to calm down a little bit,
For me, driving is meditative.
Yeah,
like
man.
Katie doesn't, like when I, in like our tensest moments, that's like the nuclear option for me is to like go take a drive.
I try to explain this to my wife on some of the big fights we've ever had. That's where you just get in that mindset of like, I'll just fucking be back in a little while. And you hop in the car, and it's like, I'm going to just circle around this area, listen to a couple songs, I'll calm down, and then you come back in, and you're like, okay, sorry, here's where it went south.
No. I'll always like, I think it's important to put like a bookmark on it first, just because if you storm off, then there's like, oh, well, you just fucking leave when the argument gets hot or something like that. But for me, it's like, hey, we're both really heated. This isn't going anywhere constructive.
Yeah, we're about to start bringing up all the old things we're mad about, and now we're just going to get in this circle of arguments,
grave digging. And then I'll just be like, hey, I got to bounce for a minute. Her way of coping with stuff is like kind of going in another room, reading, doing something like that. She doesn't really love driving. Maybe she'd go take a walk or something like that if the weather's permitting, but we're in Texas, so.
I grew up in a small town, so driving was your freedom.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's always weird to me when someone, I know everyone's different, but I mean, I enjoy driving.
I love it.
I love driving. I want to take road trips instead of flights.
Yeah.
Right? And so when you meet someone who's like, I don't really, I'm like, no, you don't think of just, like, I don't want an expensive sports car for like the flex or anything. No. I just want to drive quickly on like an empty road and like, that's like a zone out. Like, this is so much fun. I don't need to take the corner the fastest or anything. It just go.
Just a straightaway.
Yeah, because I think once you got your license at 16, like in a small town, it's like, I can get away from things now.
What town was this?
Well, now it's getting bigger, but I grew up in a small town called Copeville, C-O-P-E, Copeville.
That's in Texas?
Texas. It's northeast of here by probably, northeast of Dallas by maybe like an hour. It's out by Wiley and Farmersville and Nevada. Now all they're doing out there is building like big tract home neighborhoods. You know, it's turning into like, we'll put these tract homes, we'll put in a shopping center with a Subway or whatever, and the same old small town stuff everywhere.
You mean the Subway sandwiches, right?
Yeah, Subway
I was like,
sandwiches.
They're not putting a Subway.
No, not a Subway. No,
they're going to put a Subway up north before they put a Subway down here.
No, they built those cookie cutter shopping malls where it's like, we'll do Subway, we'll do Chipotle, we'll do something else, and it's the
all
same.
All about the same restaurant group.
Yeah, it's fucking
all the Yum Corporation, whatever.
Which is crazy because we bought a home here in Dallas. It's a modest home. It's a small home.
Where in Dallas?
We're in East Dallas, near to where you said your family lived.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
And
give the exact address. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. And we it's a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, very modest home. It was built in the 50s.
Sure.
And we were like, man, maybe it's going to be time soon to get a little bit more space, right? And you look at these home prices, and it's like the town that I left. They're now building homes out there for like $500,000.
Yep.
And you're like, if you would have told the younger me, that like, if you tried to move back to your hometown, it would cost as much or more than your Dallas home that you bought. It's like, what the fuck is happening with all this?
It's people. It's highly sought after. People want space for whatever reason. Also, like everyone moving from the West Coast here, wanting like sprawling McMansions and stuff like that. I mean, that's.
But then they just move into a little, little suburb farm town. Like they don't get any space.
Yeah, but also like I think a lot of these people they had pipe dreams of like. Especially around COVID, when people started to come over like in droves, they were moving to places like Salina and Plano, and like Plano had already pretty much blown up, but like now the city's north, Prosper, Salina, all those were starting to like
just keeps going north.
It's I mean, we're going to touch Oklahoma. I'm convinced that I think within definitely our lifetimes, I think Plano should or would have a downtown reminiscent of like downtown Fort Worth or downtown here.
Yeah,
I think eventually it'll. I don't know if they'll skyscraper up like that, but there's already like Legacy East and West, which is like a little metropolis of headquarters and stuff like that.
I think they'll have to, right? Because it's like the times I've gone to see Pazvar's show up in Salina. Yeah, it's like. That's like an hour drive from Dallas. Yeah. Right? I mean, it feels like an adventure, like a commitment for us.
It's like a road trip.
Yeah. So I could see like if Plano decided we're going to make a bigger downtown, skyscrapers, businesses, all these things, because nobody wants to drive all the way to Dallas for that anymore. If you
talk some companies into coming up there, and that way like you can be headquartered in DFW, like you can be headquartered in Dallas, but you're really in Plano. Because I mean, I was in Italy, and like anytime I was like, yeah, I'm from America, and they're like, what state? I'm like, Texas, and they're like, Houston, San Antonio, Dallas, and I was like, there's a bunch of other ones, but
have you seen this British guy who makes fun of he defends Americans because someone from London or from England will be like, oh, I live in this little suburb that's like 2 hours outside of London, and they're like, oh, is that close to London? And they're like, no, it's 2 hours away or whatever. Yeah. And this guy gets on, he's like, I don't think you realize where these people are coming from. And he talks about Texas. He's like, 2 hours in Texas is like a daily commute to work. Yeah. He's like, look how big this fucking state is. Look how big this country is. Did
he recently post something about how he found issue with the trope that Americans are not well traveled?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, that guy. Okay.
And he's like, no, it's 13 hours to get to El Paso.
Yeah, he's wearing like a Bama sweatshirt. He goes, because you don't understand, when you travel amidst the United States, you are traveling in different countries. I was like, Texas is monumentally different than California. That is monumentally different than Louisiana. That's monumentally different than New York. Yeah. It's a lot like if you're going to go to Spain and then you decide to go to like Portugal and Morocco. Yeah, those are three different countries that you can get to in 45 minutes on a train with completely different cultures. The problem is this country is enormous. And
dude, just think about Dallas to Waco to Austin. Those three towns, completely different, and they all hate and like each other for different reasons.
Yeah, and no one cares about Waco, but they're like the stepchild in the middle, just like bitching about.
You got to drive through. You got to get a kolache on your way to wherever else you're going.
Yeah, it's like how we felt like going A&M. This was back in the Big 12. Like we were like, we hate UT, and UT was like, who the fuck are y'all? like we don't give a shit about you. That's how we felt about Tech. It all just perpetuated down. Whoever was the next school to get shat on would just get shat on.
I used to hate Texas. I used to think, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to leave it. Yeah. And then I got to travel a little bit around the country, and I was like, I think I really love Texas. Yeah. I don't think I ever want to leave.
Texas is very central. And I as for as much as I'd love to live somewhere like LA or New York, I mean, truly, just outside of the cost of living and outside of my family being here, it just kind of makes a lot of sense because you can get to either coast in about 3 hours on a plane. And if you need to do it last minute, there are always flights. You know, and there are flights going late in the night to get you to New York. And I mean, it's to have to go from like, if let's say we move up to LA and then there's something calling in New York or something like that, or a different job or, commercial gigs or whatever, it's a 6 hour commitment. That's a day of travel. Like that's an entire day where you're like locked up and you can't just like, I mean, it's plausible for me to wake up in the morning and my agent be like, hey, we have this great opportunity for you, but it's in, the Bay Area. You got to get there today. I'd be like, okay, I can actually maybe I'll be paying an arm and a leg for a ticket, but like if the juice is worth the squeeze, we'll get out there. Not to say that any of that kind of stuff is happening with my agent. I have a local commercial agent who books me on like Pollo Loco commercials and stuff like that.
But you got a Pollo Loco commercial? No?
So I did it was a Cane's. I'm sorry.
Cane's.
It was a Cane's. Okay. It was some kind of a chicken thing. But and it was just it was like internal training videos. But outside of that, I've also done like regular commercials for like regular.
Oh man, I really hope like one of your fans one day at a show, like somebody goes to a show on a Saturday night. Yeah. So Monday they start that new job at Cane's and they see the training video and they're like, that can't be.
So
it can't be the guy.
Funny you say that. That hasn't happened exactly, but there was a Houston comic, Abby, her last name starts with a V, Volman, I think. She Houston comic for a long time. She moved up to New York. She works for Cane's up in New York. She just got promoted to manager. I was posting just like goofy like stories and stuff, and she goes, "Are you doing training videos for Cane's management?" I was like, "Yes." And she goes, "I'm going to see those videos." And I go, "I am so sorry. We are not trying very hard. Like these are very like they're like loosely scripted, but like ad libbed, and like neither me nor the other like talent actress like really care about what's going on. And the staff they're just trying to crank this out. It's very much a rush job.
Well, because it's a video that they know the clients that are going to watch this.
Yeah.
Right. We're trying to get through this so I can actually get out there and learn how to do this.
Doesn't
job.
need to be perfect. Yeah.
Was it more instructional, or were you going over like policies?
No, it was like
here's our new D6000 deep fryer. Or
no,
like,
it was like a dealing with a disgruntled employee, dealing with an employee that's habitually late, dealing with a customer that's getting like, it was just like really really like boilerplate.
First of all, I didn't know Cane's had this extensive training.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think Cane's is a fantastic place to work. Allegedly, I mean, I see they have like a bunch of plaques saying like best place to work, best place for women to work, best place for like a lot of like.
We go to the one off Greenville Avenue quite often. No issues. Great place.
Great. Hey, Cane's, sponsor the show. Just go ahead and sponsor it real quick. Tag them up. Take the sponsorship. I would take a sponsorship. I would wear a Cane's shirt every night on stage. Wouldn't it be funny if we got kidded like I almost said football like soccer players do?
Yeah.
And we just had like Sasquatch deodorant or whatever, and like liquid death.
I would love it, man. That's like, did you ever catch that episode of It's Always Sunny where they're trying out for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah.
And the coach is there, and he's like, he has to say some McDonald's slogan. He's like, they sponsor me, and he's like, there's no cameras or anything. He just has to say it in person every so often.
I'm loving it.
Yeah. That's what it was. Yeah, just whatever that was.
It was the guy posing as Donovan McNabb.
Yes, yeah. That's what it was. Yeah.
That dude later poses Tiger Woods in a completely different episode. And,
oh my God!
And
yeah.
D's like whoring herself out or something like that.
Yeah, she's drunk and thinks it's really Tiger Woods.
Yeah, well,
right?
no. She like calls. They call. She was running around town with like just some prostitute from Philly, and the prostitute claimed she knew Tiger Woods. Calls him, calls him to Dee's house, and then it's that same guy who was posing as, and Dee calls him on it. She goes, "You were just Donovan McNabb. You can't be both people." Like that's such a good show, and it's still running.
I know, man. They're incredible.
That's a dream. I would love to be on that show. In fact,
is that the goal? Like, do you want to do more acting as you know?
I'd love to do more acting and more comedy. I like to do both, and I don't see why both can't happen. Now, if somebody sits me down and they're like, "You really got to focus on one because like you can't do both," which I'm yet to see. Like I see like a comic who I really like, Sean Patton is. I mean, this is just a story that he posted, but it must have been like a table read or something like that for a show on whatever network. I don't know, but he still is very active in stand up and stuff like that. And he's fantastic. He's one of my favorites. So he's like a story narrative, like fantastic story weaving guy who like makes them go off the rails, and it's a style of comedy that I really admire. But point being is he's doing both, and I'd really like to do both too. Like there are shows that I would like give a limb for to be on if the part called for a person who without a limb. Yeah, but
it's wild though. Like comics, anybody who has a comic background, so many of them have made incredible actors.
Yeah,
incredible actors.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think about it a lot. My take is probably when you're going up on stage, even though you're yourself, like you're having to think quickly about how maybe you're presenting yourself that night to a crowd. Yeah. So I think you're having to make a lot of micro adjustments that at first, like when you see an open micer who's figuring it out, I think that's what they're not capable of doing yet. And I'm still learning a lot, so I could be way off, but I don't think they know how to adjust themselves for that crowd that evening. And that's why things look so shaky, right? Yeah. Whereas when you watch a pro who is unfazed by any crowd, I think that's something they excel at, is they get up there and they almost instantly read that room. And so they know how to give and take with the crowd, not necessarily in like what they're actually saying, but kind of that energy. Yeah. Whereas really phenomenal actors, it's a lot about like giving and taking to each other in those scenes. Sure. Right? And so I think maybe it's just a great prep course of like, you're trying to get the best out of this individual so that you can put your best forward as well, rather than being so selfish as like, I'm giving you my whole best right now, and you take it and good luck. Right? Yeah. But I don't know. What's your take on it?
So similar to like what you're saying, but one thing that I've in like experience, and this is like doing both like commercials that have like loose characters that I mean, like you're never really far off what you yourself are, because that's the reason why they booked you for that commercial. They like your look, they like the way you sound. So like someone's not going to book me and be like, hey, can you do a British accent like day of? Like they just want you to kind of be you.
Yeah.
But of the stuff that I've done that's been a little bit more narrative driven, it does have like a storyline, and we actually do need to do a little acting and not just line regurgitating. Is comics are fantastic at stomaching failure, and we're really coachable. So like when something goes sideways and we make those micro adjustments, like when you're a pro and you can do that on the fly. Initially, you're not a pro. You get off stage, and some people give you some notes, and some of them you take to heart, and then you make those little tweaks, and you're really good at keeping that stuff in mind because you remember what burned, you remember what didn't work, right? So you're like, when I said it this way, it didn't land, but then when I took Trey Mack's advice, then this landed really, really, really well, and that's like anecdotal. Like Trey's giving me some fantastic advice on stuff that he's like, yeah, you talk too fast, and I was like, really? And he goes, yeah, slow the fuck down, and I was like, all right, good note, and I was like, true to his word. I mean, a lot of stuff landed a lot better when I kind of moseyed through it. But when you're coachable, when you don't give a fuck about the outcome, and when you are essentially immune to failure, you make a great actor, because when a director gives you notes, you take it on the chin and you go.
Yeah.
You're really good at making micro adjustments, and you know how to act because you've done act. Even if you're not like a flamboyant actor on stand-up stages, you know how to sell a joke when you need to really hard. Like there's some things where I really got to like ham it up on stage and really kind of be like, really eyebrow them, like do wide eyes, do narrow eyes. I look really mad. Like you got to emote a little bit. So with all that stuff into consideration, and also taking into account that we don't care about failure, we can take as many notes as a director needs. We also want to just be done with this, so we'll really listen and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we're also a lot of our stuff is rooted in tragedy, so we can really dip into some of the harder emotions where like some of the actors like need to be inspired and need to kind of like flow or play these like games to get themselves into the mood. Now you get better at that obviously as you get more seasoned too, but man, when I come across like actors at the agency on set and they're just like, well, what's my inspiration? I was like, your inspiration ain't shit. This is a fucking Pollo Loco commercial.
Your inspiration is they hired you, and we need to get it done.
Take a bite of the fucking chip. Take a bite of the chip and then smile at the rest of the table. That's your fucking line. Like, that's all you got to do.
I'm sure you've watched Barry by now. With Bill Hader.
I haven't seen it all the way through, but I watched the first few episodes and I was hooked, and then like as life happens, I'm just like, sure.
But they did such a good job of showing the like neurotic strangeness of actors, trying to make it, and how styles can be really, really ridiculous.
Yeah,
to like get in the zone of something. Because I mean, I've always wondered. I've never taken any acting class or anything like that, but you see those things of people where it's like, okay, we're going to be trees today.
Yeah.
It's like
right.
But then you watch someone, like Robin Williams, who just destroys acting. And you're like, did he ever do any of that bullshit? Did any of that really matter?
I think he just had it in him.
That's what I'm saying. I think sometimes it's just about figuring out like, okay, this is what I do incredibly well.
Yeah.
And how do I, like you said, you're just being yourself. And then how do you just kind of really stretch that out a little bit on each side, but never going too far out of that
just
lane.
Be pliable. Like just be able to bend a little bit on stuff like that. If they want you to say the line faster, say the line faster. If they want you to deliver, like, I've had some really weird notes, and especially with like with voiceover, I didn't realize how much Texas I actually have in my voice. I still don't think I really do.
Yeah,
but it was for like a West Coast client. It was like for a tech company.
Now, are you native Texan trying to get rid of the accent, or did you move to Texas from another part of the country?
No, I'm native Texan.
Texan.
This is how I talk. Like,
okay, but you were thinking
unadulterated. Yeah.
See, that happened to me a lot though, because I would think, I don't have that accent anymore. And then you leave town and you're like, I have an accent.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just around here you forget, right?
Yeah, because it's kind of commonplace. And like Texas accents are kind of subtle. They're not like backcountry hickish like you. I mean, that's like, those are backcountry accents. Yeah. Like, you know what they are. Like,
that's me after I drink a lot. That's when it
yeah.
really comes out.
Honestly, same.
Yeah.
I'll get a lot more of a twang when I drink more.
And if you're drinking around some of your like native Texas friends, it's like all of a sudden the accent just starts ramping up.
Yeah, I have a mutt accent. It's like some street, some Texas, some proper. Like,
were your parents speaking? Is it Iranian? Is that
Farsi?
Farsi? Were they speaking Farsi at home?
Yeah. So I grew up speaking Farsi only, and then in kindergarten we just learned English in school, essentially. I mean, like kindergarten, you ain't doing much, and everything's like very broken down and slow. So like even though I didn't really speak much English, I actually went to ESL classes for a little while. But I knew too much to be in ESL classes because those classes are like stupid, especially at that level, like K first, like pre-K. It's like they're showing you a picture of a dog and they're like, "What's this?" And I was like, "A dog." And they're like,
good.
They're like,
very good.
I was like, I'm fucking crushing this class. What is this? Also, why was I taken out with the rest of the kids? I feel like the only time kids got taken out of class was like when they were in trouble or going to doctor's appointments.
What part of Texas were you raised in?
So I went to South Dallas schools until 3rd grade. So DISD until 3rd grade.
Okay, that's surprising. I would have guessed you were somewhere smaller because I was thinking like they probably just saw like a brown kid and were like, ESL, put them in there.
Well, yeah.
But I would have thought DISD would not be doing that.
So DISD didn't. Plano did. When I was in Plano in 3rd grade, I got put back. So I got put back in ESL classes in 3rd grade because I was just quiet, and they were just like, he must not speak English. And I was like,
clearly doesn't understand us.
I speak English. I know most of the swear words by this point now. Actually, 3rd grade was when I learned a lot of the swear words, and I was like, I know more English than you fucking think.
I'm sure that happens everywhere, but to me, that's very Texan. Like we've come I think people don't want to admit that we've come a long way in Texas with that type of stuff, right? With Texas is a very big melting pot now. You know, like I definitely feel like we have pockets of racism all over, but I think your major areas do a really good job of blending now with all sorts of races and types and stuff. But that's definitely more recent, but it's happened very quickly. I knew a guy, he's Asian. He was born in West Texas in the 80s, like not horribly long ago.
Yeah.
And his birth certificate formally says yellow. This is a government document. This is not me saying that word.
Oriental.
It literally said like under race, yellow. And it's like that was in the like mid to late 80s.
I have some friends' parents that to this day will still describe Asian people as Oriental. I'm like, I don't know if we can say that.
That's one of those words though, because I
stumble on it too because I'm just like, is it bad or is it derogatory? Or is it just kind of like gross?
It's kind of like every now and then when you say Mexican, but maybe you said it a little hot. You're like, that felt racist, but it's like no, they are in fact Mexicans.
Yeah, and also,
but it feels like
every like well-to-do like white, but like honestly, like this is kind of your key indicator that they're like kind of towing the line of a little bit of a racist is when they're like, yeah, something, and then this black guy walked up, and I was like, you can just say with full volume black guy, because that is the in fact color of their skin, and if you're trying to give a descriptor, that is a really important one to use if you need to.
I still get weird about saying black, right?
Yeah.
And I know it's fine, but we just had this phase of like African American for so long, where it's like African American, and so now
it's too long.
And then you realize it's like, what happened was I ran into enough black people who are like, I'm not from Africa. I'm American.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm black.
Yeah.
And it's like, I guess that is correct, but it just feels so dirty still.
Yeah, and you got to get. I mean, it's a descriptor, and I'm like, I personally have no bones about it. If it's a large group of black people hanging out, and I need to identify amidst them, I'm like, hey, it's the light skinned dude, it's the darker guy. It's there's
nothing wrong with it.
No.
Yeah. I think it was that overcorrection of like, we want to try so hard not to be racist that you end up, and it's like, no, you would actually just like, they're going to describe you as that white guy and it's going to be fine. I'm not going to be bothered by that.
You can be politically correct to a fault. Like you can do it to where it then like hinders everything that you're trying to do and communicate and convey. And then it becomes almost counterproductive. So like, what is even the point? Just do the thing that you initially wanted to do. And if someone doesn't like it, they might voice the opposition to it, but then,
well, it's that whole,
move on.
It's that whole, like, gosh, when I was in high school and like early college, it was probably like, it was switching to like, I'm colorblind. I don't see you as that or anything, I see. And then you realize like, no, that's a swing too far. It's like, you want to know the differences, be fine with differences and celebrate differences. Right. But to be like, I don't know anything about you, Shahyan. By looking at you, I have no clue.
Yeah.
No clue. Tell me everything about you so that I can figure out something about you. And it's like, that's just lame.
Yeah.
It's just super lame.
And you also don't like in instances where we're hitting all the hot button topics right now. In instances where like you misgender someone, but like the person presents as male. Like they have facial hair, they look like a biological male, and then you misgender, you say, I don't know, go ask him, and they're like, excuse me, I identify as female. The calculus I do in my head is, okay, that person is now female, I can just switch the title out real quick. I don't care. It doesn't. You can identify as a fucking shoe.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit.
I don't care.
Just tell me what to call you so it doesn't hurt your feelings. Because at the end of the day, that's genuinely how I feel. Like I don't want to go out and hurt your feelings. I'm gonna misfire taking buckshots all the time. But like if I do it wrong, correct me, and then understand that I might make a few more errors here and there, or I might flub on it. But it is top of mind for me from here on out. I have clients, or I have a client who their partner is transgendered, and when we're referring to them, it's that. So like I constantly am like explicitly making that comment, and so are they, and they're appreciative of it. But I've definitely fucked it up, and he hasn't been like, call my partner by the proper. Like a lot of people, you know, if they're sensitive about it, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, I mean, some people, no matter their gender, are just assholes. Right? And that's it. And it's like, and if you're an asshole, no matter what the realm is, then you're just going to be an asshole about every topic. And my thing is like, look, you know that this is a new thing in society for the masses to understand. Have a little bit of patience, a little bit, like you said, there's clearly, if you're too stupid to tell intent, right? If I come up and I'm like, what the fuck's up, dude? You know, and you're clearly transitioning to a woman, then it's like, yeah, I'm probably an asshole right there.
Well, but if you're doing it like maliciously,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like if you can't tell the difference,
biological dude,
yeah, it's like, but yeah, a clear, you know, you have to understand there's going to be a little bit of education. And it's like we live in Dallas, we have more liberal tendencies, and we will still make those mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
You go out to these other areas where they have never ever come across this. You got to give them a little bit more of a pass. And it's like, hey, here's the thing: like the cooler you are with this, the more understanding you are that they don't get it, but they're also not trying to destroy your life because you want to be a little different. That they just don't get it. They're actually going to accept you a lot faster because you know they'll be talking later and be like, I don't, you know. It was weird, but they were pretty nice. We nothing happened, man. It was all good.
They didn't try to fuck me. Like it was,
so I thought it would be stranger, but it wasn't. And you know, it's like that's the faster way, in my opinion, to acceptance. Is like just be cool. And
you said like you know, people are too stupid to conceptualize something at some points, and I don't know if you noticed this, but it's on the middle. I'm fairly centrist, to the bane of Katie's existence, because she leans pretty hard. She leans. I'm just left of center, if I have to put this in a spectrum, but like just left of center, but pretty tight. And she's like probably a little bit more on a 45-degree angle. She's not all the way on the flat line, you know. But like, if you haven't noticed, it's the people that are on the absolute fringes. It's, you know, the trans individuals who like will jump up your ass if you do it wrong, but they present a certain way and you just made a miscalculation and accidentally said sir when you were supposed to say ma'am, and it was an honest mistake, and they jump up your ass about it, and you're just like, hey dude, what the fuck? And then you have the people on the far right where they're like, can you believe that, you know, that person is calling themselves a woman? I'd be like, well, yeah, why can't you wrap your mind around just something different other than like chicken and mashed potatoes? Like, broaden your mind a little bit.
It's like I genuinely don't give a fuck what you want to wear and how you want to present yourself, so long as you're not causing real problems for anyone. Like if someone's just uncomfortable, I don't care. But it's like you said, it's when you're on those far edges. Both of those edges make demands. And you never get what you want when you're demanding. Like if you and me went home tonight to our wives and like, here's what's going to happen, woman. It would not go well.
Right? Yeah. Far right.
Right. Exactly. You know, and it's like Hannah Gatsby just put out that Netflix thing where I don't know if it's exclusively, but there's probably 3 or 4. It's one of those where there's like 5 or 6 comics on a show that she kind of handpicked.
Okay,
it's fairly new. I haven't watched any of it yet, but most of them are either, you know, oh my god, I'm blanking on it right now. They either identify opposite of their
gender,
born gender or whatever we're going with here, and a lot of the material is about that.
Great,
right? And one of the comics, it's a I haven't watched the special, so I don't know if they I don't know what their gender that they specify is, but it's clearly looks like a man, and it's like, you know, man style haircut, but there's like lipstick, wearing like a gown type dress. So that's one of those where it's like, hey, it's a little confusing. And like you said, all you got to do is let me know, and that's what I'll go with.
If I say it wrong first, then just correct me, and then let's move on.
And it's like, and if you know, it's a little confusing. When we meet, you could just tell me. You could just tell me right up.
As I'm also cool with that.
Like the guy on Queer Eye, that the TV show.
Yeah,
The long dark
hair,
yeah, I
beard.
think he's like the stylist on the show. But you know what I mean? It's like crazy long hair,
Yeah.
full beard.
Yeah.
He'll be wearing, regular like dude jeans and like some high heels. And it's like,
or sometimes a dress.
yeah, and it's like, hey, I'm good, but like, just help me out. Like,
He might be one of the best
there.
guys on the show. He's super funny.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like,
Forget what he identifies as.
yeah, and but I feel like also when you watch him, he's the guy. It's like he's not really going to jump down your throat if you go the wrong. He knows he's eclectic and doing things that are outside of norm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why. Like, I'm starting to think the late '90s, early 2000s. Maybe pre 9/11. I think that was a big change for a lot of people on how just they view like others, anybody who's not you.
Yeah.
But I felt like that was like we were all starting to become really comfortable with the idea of like gay people, gay marriage, differences, and just being like
Pre 9/11, you thought?
I think so. I think like the 90s. Maybe it was just because I was wrapped up in a certain style of like indie rock music and stuff. But it felt like a lot of people in that realm, it was like, oh yeah, that's so and so, they're gay, and people would be like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we're here to watch Nirvana.
Yeah. Yeah. Like gay was no longer like. I mean, we would still throw it around derogatorily because we were kids and dumb.
Yeah.
But like, we would also. But it became a point where like, yeah, it was probably around. I would say it was like around high school-ish time where like people were more comfortable with coming out or bravely came out in a shark infested waters.
Yeah.
Basically, like that's a hell of a time to have to like.
Yeah.
Out yourself as to how you truly feel.
Yeah, like it wasn't easy, but it felt like the people that were down with it, it was more relaxed. Like it wasn't like, here's Steve, and Steve is gay.
Yeah.
It was just
they're not like walking, they're not introducing themselves in classes.
It was like, hey, did you hear Steve came out? And I was like, oh, Steve came out?
Strange. Okay, cool. I didn't know that. Cool. Awesome.
We still doing tacos or what are we doing?
Yeah. Are we still going to lunch or?
Yeah, and that's kind of what I think. I think maybe it's swinging back to that a little bit now. Now we've gone really far to where it's gotten a little wild and both sides are angry at each other. And I think everybody's getting tired of that shit. And we're coming back to the middle a little bit here.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. There's going to be some people that are like hard to adopt this kind of stuff. I mean, the whole hard right now like sympathizes with Putin. They're like
yeah,
it's a wacky landscape. This upcoming election year is going to be very entertaining to watch.
I'm just shocked. I would have bet everything that we would not have the same two candidates. That's what blows my mind the most. It's like, I don't care if you're Republican, if you're Democrat, they have given you the shittiest options, and you all deserve better than this.
Oh yeah,
you all do. Like the amount of like I know you're more central, and I feel like I am too. And it's like,
well, Kennedy is my alternative.
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now. It's like, I guess I got to go here because one says a bunch of crazy shit that it's like I can't get behind that kind of like ruling with anger, with Trump. And then Biden is clearly got so many fucking problems and is barely there.
I don't really want to vote on him, to be honest.
No, I just feel like I have to vote either a third party or a write-in just to show that there's data of like these people who want something else.
Yeah.
So that maybe if there is an incredible candidate who doesn't want to be part of either of these parties, that they'll be like, look at this percentage. We can get them.
Yeah.
And that's
the Rock is sitting there like, look at how many people voted for me.
As a big fan of Idiocracy, the movie, I cannot believe I would love to vote for The Rock right now.
I'm still giving it thought to write in, honestly. Like, and
to me, if you gave me The Rock and Mark Cuban, they can sort out. I think Rock goes president, Cuban goes vice president.
I don't think well, I was going to say I think Cuban has too big of an ego, but The Rock has the biggest of the two egos.
He'll check Cuban. We just need Cuban as more of that like. He's got a little bit of umph where he'll like go get some stuff done. Like he's got a little bit of a wild hair.
Yeah.
But he also knows how to push the pencil and get real work done when he needs to.
Well, last time we did someone with a wild hair who had a lot of business sense, we had Trump's.
Yeah. But I don't think you put Cuban and Trump.
And last time we put
league.
a celebrity in the office, we had Reagan.
But that's where I'm at. It's like give me something. I guess that's where my conspiracy stuff comes in, where I think, are they just giving us the worst options to just slowly get us so apathetic that corporations, everything, just do what the fuck they want, like they already do.
Dude, honestly, I don't think that's too red pilly. Like, I don't think that's very conspiratorial at all. Because, I mean, what it comes down to are the people who fund the PACs and the companies that are basically swaying the interests of people. Like when you have a politician, a person who is supposed to govern in some way, shape, or form, is being influenced by the fucking realtors organization or the NRA or labor unions or something like that. Like
shit you shouldn't be involved in.
Like things that don't concern you. Like you give a fuck about the interest rate or the percentages that realtors are making. You give a fuck about guns. I mean, probably should have less of them here, but like whatever.
Yeah, like I used to be very very like we got to get rid of all the guns. Got to get rid of all the guns. And I think that's part of what makes me love living in Texas, like not the guns, but I think there is something to having this balance of being around people that think differently than you. I think it's important, right?
I actually like it. Yeah.
You should never have all Republicans. You should never have all Democrats. There should always be a blend to keep each other in check so we never go too far one direction, right?
You know what you've just produced right there? A centrist.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I think more people are that way, right? Like when you have conversations with somebody who identifies as like, I'm a conservative.
Yeah.
It's like, cool. And then you start talking to them and you
realize, I smoke weed, yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, they're central. They just don't want to identify with that other side because they hear that extreme so much.
It's
right?
that hive and tribe mentality.
Yeah,
right?
and it's like, but once you talk to them, it's like, I'll talk to some of my friends who just love guns, love them. And it's like, once you get past the actual talking, the headline talking points, they're like, yeah, I mean, I fucking love my AR, but like, we got to do something about these school shootings.
Yeah.
And it's like they're saying the same stuff as you.
Yeah.
It kind of goes back to that trans thing of like, if you're making demands and telling people and getting on them from that angle, no one's listening. No one's going to really hear what you have to say. Whereas when you start asking them some questions, you're like, okay, it sounds like they want the same thing as me and they got a couple ideas. They just don't have politicians that'll listen to them right now.
Yeah. And I think like what you said is really key there. There's a lot of like responsible gun owners. There's not a single one that's like, oh yeah, the Allen outlets got shot up. They're going to come after our guns now. They're like, no, this shit needs to, like, I don't, like, I have several, I don't know, I personally don't, but this is them, like, saying, I have several guns. I don't go on mass shooting sprees. Yeah. They're locked up. I mean, like, by and large, most of my friends that are, packing a lot of heat, heavy artillery, have a lot of guns, they keep their shit, they rarely shoot them. Like, I have several friends with ARs, and they're like, and I'm like, when do you take that out? And they're like, never.
Yeah.
I was like, if I go boar hunting, and I was like, how often you go boar hunting? Once every 4 years.
And they'll level with you. They'll be like, it's fucking cool. It's just a cool thing that I have.
To some extent, I sympathize. I like shooting guns too. I like long barrel rifles are my favorite. I love shooting pistols. Like it's super fun. I don't own any, but I'll go to gun ranges. And if I can get to an outdoor gun range where we can shoot long distance targets with like 22s or anything with a scope, I'm in hog heaven. Archery, I love like machinery and firearm sports. Yeah. Super fun.
There is a lot to enjoy about it. And that's why I've gone way far away from going like, and just the realization of you're not going to get rid of all of them.
No.
You're not.
Cat's out of the bag. And also we can print them now. So
yeah. Well, and what the more Second Amendment heavy people talk about how like you're not going to get guns away from criminals and all that. It's like, look, they're kind of right. They're right.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't personally feel like I need a gun, but there are a lot of people in a lot of situations. Like I had a friend, an old roommate. He was a home inspector or a home appraiser, right? Like you're going to buy the house, they go walk out there, do the appraisal for the loan people, right? And when he first started, they gave him the lowest hanging fruit, right? He's going to the really poor neighborhoods, higher violent neighborhoods. And he was these are his words. He's like, I'm a little guy. He was shorter, smaller. He's like, if somebody wants to hurt me, they can hurt me.
Yeah.
So when he would go appraise those houses, he would just have the gun like right on his hip, broad daylight. And he's like, that way, if someone's just thinking about hurting me, it's like, it's a little bit of a
deterrent.
Yeah. Because he's like, I'm looking at this house. Somebody can sneak up on me. Yeah. He's like, I'm
smart.
And I'm in neighborhoods where like they can tell I'm not from here.
Sure.
He's like, so if they wanted to hurt me, if they wanted to take my car, he's like, they'd probably get it.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah.
And I'm sure
that's reasonable.
That's the type of person that wouldn't like just immediately pull and start shooting.
No,
like, that's
he was very responsible. And then we have
Wouldn't be
two.
Surprised if they even brought it unloaded sometimes. Just
he was definitely a loaded guy.
Yeah.
Well, and we have two friends that were police officers and then moved into detectives.
Okay.
And it was a good reassurance of like, these guys are good cops. These guys are good guys.
Yeah.
You hear the way they talk about it, and you're like, they're not the problem. They're the ones you never hear about.
Yeah.
You don't hear about this guy making good judgment calls and letting people slide when it's minor.
Why
and,
would you? Yeah.
Yeah. And because it's easier to get people to watch the news when you sensationalize either direction.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know. I was all in on Bernie that first run.
Oh yeah, he's way too old now.
He's too old now. But
so are all of them.
I know he had crazy ideas, but to me, if he could have just accomplished getting rid of Citizens United, where corporations couldn't donate to politicians anymore. I thought that would have just been the hugest thing for the country. Both sides would benefit from that. Like Republicans, Democrats would all love it if they didn't have to cater to these fucking corporations anymore and have to depend on them to raise money.
That's all from something called, what is it called?
I believe it's Citizens United, where they deemed corporations
it's like a bill or what is
it? I don't know exactly how it went down, but they basically determined that corporations are somehow, quote, people, and they can contribute.
Oh, I remember this. Okay, yeah, that's bullshit.
And so that's how we got super PACs and all these huge things to where now you can have a $60 million losing campaign.
So did Bernie not take money from corporations?
No, that was his big selling point. Is all of the money he raised were individual donations, and
That's
I believe
bananas.
I think he said they averaged something like $27 or $37 each.
Wow.
So he was the man. Like
that's pretty impressive.
The Dems on that first run, in my opinion, I'm of the opinion they stole it from him and gave it to Hillary.
Yeah.
Because of the way it's not the Electoral College. What is it on the
for the
primaries for the Democrats? They have their delegates.
Delegates, yeah.
Yeah. I'm of the opinion, like, the Democrats are, all these companies that donate to him are like, don't let that Bernie guy in because he's going to change some stuff about the way we do things, and we don't like that.
Oh, fucking Hillary was
like you were saying about all the lobbyists, right?
Yeah.
It's like Bernie was going to make it to where those lobbyists hopefully didn't need to exist anymore because those companies couldn't donate and change things the way they were doing it.
Yeah.
And so I think that put a lot of fear into the system of, oh my God, this guy's going to fuck up how we control it.
Yeah.
So if he had done nothing else, if he just did that, I would have thought that was successful because I think everyone wins with that.
Yeah.
I think his big problem was he came in saying words like free, like I'm going to give you free school, we're going to have free healthcare.
Ooh.
And when you say something like that to a conservative, they're like, look, nothing's free.
Yeah.
What's the trade? Don't bullshit me with this free talk. So I think he had bad marketing in that sense.
Yeah.
Because if you heard him in long form, he was like, here's how we will get this stuff paid for. And he had very extensive plans of like he was going to add small fractional taxes to speculative stock trading. So like if you and me are just day trading every day and taking these gambling trades on stocks, whether they're going to go up or down, there would be a tax with it. Kind of what they were doing with all the GameStop stuff and everything. And he was like, this is how we can pay for education. And there was like a real plan in place. It wasn't just we're going to tax you more.
I wonder what the frequency of that is. Like there are a lot of day traders out there, and if they're making little fractional, even if they're making little fractional buys here and there, and there's tax on each one of those.
Yeah. But then you find out a lot of people on Wall Street donate to political parties.
Yeah.
And then they're like, hey, cut that shit out.
Sorry, you're going to tax our what now?
No. And I think that's why they went ahead and went with Hillary. And then I feel like they thought, there's no way the country is going to vote for Trump. Hillary's going to have it locked down. Everybody thought that was locked down.
Would you think a Bernie-Trump matchup would have been better?
I think so, but who knows? Because, Trump's base was so motivated to elect him. And like I know there's people out there who are like, there's no way he won, blah blah blah. I think he won fair and square. I don't like the guy
on the first one.
On the first one, I think Trump won fair and square.
No,
because I think he went to those towns that felt disenfranchised by states and towns that typically went blue.
Yeah,
and Democrats were like, we got it locked up.
Yeah,
I think they were starting to feel ignored and disenfranchised and separated. And Trump went there and was like, they're not showing up. I showed up. Yeah. And he's talking to these people, and I think he won them over.
Yeah.
I think he switched a lot of people who were sick of the status quo with the Democratic Party.
Yeah, and I think they struggled to get that back with like Hillary and all that, or with Biden. With Biden after that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know how many of those they got back. I mean, some of those people stayed.
I'm a person, if it would have been someone different than Biden, it didn't need to be Bernie, but if you could have just got me someone who had, I don't know, like when you talk about Hillary and Biden, they just feel like it's the company man.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like a safe, it's not really a safe bet. It's a bet.
Yeah. And it's just for better or worse, Trump has kind of broken that company man system on the Republican side, right? They don't like him, but he keeps getting these votes.
I don't know how he keeps like doing stuff.
I think it's a sign of just how frustrated that side of politics currently are with, the way, we all know, like, I started following this group. I can't remember the name of it, but they just follow the politicians' stock trading because they're all insider trading right now. So like Nancy Pelosi, she bought a bunch of stock in this company called NVIDIA.
Yeah.
And then it was like shortly after that company, I think they're making microchips or something. Shortly after, they have like a boom and the stock goes up. And there's all these patterns of that happening where it's like, seems like you guys might all be...
Y'all know something I don't.
Yeah, gaming the system here. And meanwhile, we're all trying to figure out why the middle class is slowly dying.
Yeah.
You know, whether you're Republican or Democrat, it's like it's getting harder and harder to stay out of the lower class.
And to make an honest buck, yeah. Especially when you're not privy to this information that a lot of higher level people have.
And I think conservatives are more likely to just be like, you know what? Fuck that. Like whenever Trump was first running, they probably were taking him as a joke. And then he came out there and started like, you know, you're from Texas. It's like you go to party, drinking, people start talking shit, and people are like, whoo!
Yeah.
You know what they fucking said? And I think that's what he did. And then they're all of a sudden they're like, man, fuck Jeb Bush.
Yeah.
Fuck him. This suit, he doesn't know me. He's not like me. And the greatest trick of all is somehow this billionaire New Yorker convinced all of these small town people that they're, you know, one and the same.
Like who's a complete fraud.
I'll never understand that. Yeah, because I don't think he's genuine. I don't think he gives a fuck about y'all.
Oh, no.
I think he wants to win at all cost, and he figured out how to manipulate people, and he's good at that.
Very good.
I don't think he's good, but
no, he's a bad dude. I was talking with a client of mine today, and he was just like, so I mean, with the nominations locked up and everything like that, it's a rematch, and he was just like, yeah, I honestly think Trump is just running to like punt the court cases. Like he's just trying to delay because like they're not going to try him in any of the serious trials or anything during an election cycle. Or maybe they're posturing like they are, like they're trying to be tough, like still in Georgia and stuff like that. Even though that whole like affair, whatever thing went on with whatever her name was,
Stormy Daniels thing.
No, not Stormy Daniels. The affair with the lead prosecutor in the Georgia case. Had an affair with one of the other members of the prosecution team.
Oh God!
And,
of course,
we
can't just have a trial,
dude. She got berated. Like the dude, the male counterpart in the affair relationship. Maybe it wasn't an affair. Maybe it was just a relationship.
Yeah.
He had to exit the case. He had to be out. But the main prosecutor was allowed to stay on. But then the judge like scolds her like this was a real lapse of judgment. Like, yeah, no shit. Like you're in the middle of arguably the most important trial that we're actually getting to have before the election. In the Georgia cases, and you're fucking some dude and going to Paris on like, you know, like come
but see,
on, dude.
I think this is part of what is energizing that side so much. Right when you're trying to tell them like, hey, the government's not trying to fuck anybody over. Right when you're trying to calm them down. They're trying to put this guy in a courtroom during an election cycle to like get bad press. And then I think the other thing that really set him off recently was it's like trying to remove him from ballots.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, look, I don't fucking like the guy.
Yeah.
I don't think he should be president.
But we can't do that.
But it's America, and you put him on the ballot if he's running.
That was a stupid move.
But I think that polarizes them even more, and they're like, see, they're trying to cheat, they're trying to scan the system.
They're going to take any situation like that. But I also think that Colorado even doing that, when the moment that happened, I was just like, no,
it's not the way you go about it.
Because then other states are going to be like, maybe we can do it, and then the Supreme Court's going to be like, the fuck you're not. Like, are you kidding me? Like,
and it also goes both ways, right? In 4 more years, you might have a Democratic candidate where they're like, pull him off the ballot.
Yeah.
And now it's like, do you...
Because of some controversy.
Yeah, do you want to get into this? Or do you want to just like, let's keep it as much of a democracy as we can, all right? And I don't know.
I don't think anyone's going to run that's going to have a completely clean slate. I mean, there's like...
you're a human being.
You're going to have skeletons in your closet. You're going to have done shitty things in the past. And I'm not even talking about like weird, shitty stuff you posted or like lewd comments you made, this, that, and like, I'm talking like you're going to have done some pretty heinous things to get to whatever level you are, that you are in the conversation for president.
Yeah,
right?
There's no way. Because even an average good person who's trying to do good things,
you've stepped on heads.
They fuck up.
Yeah,
they make bad choices. You know,
in comedy, like people step on heads. People will, use people for leverage on shows. People will use their room to book people to get other people into show. Like it goes several ways. That's
one of y'all's superpowers, though. That's one of the only businesses, show business, industry, job, whatever, where you can openly talk about your horrible things and it's somehow very accepted. Like, for instance, we filmed the thing for Lawrence.
Yeah.
All of his stuff in there that he's talking about are the worst moments of his life.
Sure.
Right? And no one's just like, this guy's terrible.
Yeah.
He's horrible.
Yeah.
Right? And there's some sort of redeeming thing about, like, you're putting it out there, you're taking judgment, and you're making some jokes about it. Because I think everybody... like how many bad things has the average person done? Not like horrible things, but
Sure.
just bad choices where you wish you could just tell everyone, make a joke, and then everybody's cool with it again.
Yeah.
And you're like, I learned my, and that's kind of one of the superpowers you'll have is you can get the worst things about yourself out there, and no one's really mad at you about it.
No, because it's like what they're there to hear. No one wants to hear like a comic go up and be like, I cleared 10% more in income last year, this year to last year. I booked several more commercials. Like no one's gonna.
Yeah, but there's got to be something there about the human condition of like everyone's so faulted that they want to pay money to watch someone talk about their faults.
Yeah, because it's relatable, right? Because like you when you say something that like you secretly believe yourself, or like that has happened to you as well. Like Lawrence is the only person that got addicted to meth. A lot of other people have. Like, maybe that's like,
yeah,
maybe I'm not so bad. Like,
yeah. There's a reason so many people were selling it, right?
It keeps getting sold. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty. We even had a family friend when we told them that we were recording stuff, and they were like, "Well, what's it like? What's this material like?" And I was like, "Well, he had a lot of problems." I was like, "But he seems to have his life, back on track. He's trying to do better and get it going in the direction he wants."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Well, what happened?" And I was like, "Well, he hit rock bottom when he was letting a drug dealer, give him head so that he could have meth."
Yeah.
And they're like, what? And they kind of freaked out for a second. They were some of our more wholesome friends.
Yeah.
And they're like, so you're working with him? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, would you let him in your house? I was like, yeah. He's a nice guy.
Absolutely.
Like, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
And then, I was talking to somebody else and they were like, he's got a lot of anger issues, right? And I was like, yeah.
I've seen him.
I was like, so I edited this. So I've heard him talk about his anger issues for hours now. I was like, I'm fully aware of all of this. Like, and it's like, that's why we wanted to work with him. It's like he has these real things that he's talking about.
Yeah, he's a very raw person.
It's not just,
like,
what's strange about mayonnaise?
Yeah, right. Like he doesn't give he didn't give a shit about that.
Yeah.
But that being said, he could write a joke about mayonnaise if he wanted to. He's really talented.
Yeah, actually, that being said, he has a funny joke about ranch.
Yeah, he really does. Yeah, actually.
He actually seriously does?
Yeah. Where's the other ranch?
Yeah.
You don't get another ranch.
Oh my gosh. But
I've seen like him blow up at like there was a hole in the wall of Hyenas Fort Worth in the Red Room area around the corner because a guy. Did you hear about this?
Nope.
Did he tell you about this?
nope.
We were doing, it was just the mic, I think. It was just the mic on Thursday after like a 3x25, and he had done the 3x25, so we both go up on the mic. And there was a guy who was just kind of like man spreading on the corner of the stage. And his legs were
In the Red Room?
in the Red room.
Yeah, so he's right there.
Yeah, so like it's real tight. Like, and as you're getting off the side of that stage to go walk towards the bar, like if you're like your legs are splayed open, you're gonna kind of like. So Lawrence tries to get past him, and he bumps him on the stomach or something like that. Like he just kind of he doesn't know this guy. He just goes like, "Hey buddy, get out of my way." But he probably said something snide to him or something like that. The dude gets up, gets all mad at him. They start fighting in the corner over there. The dude lifts and throws Lawrence into a wall. Oh my God. And there was a Lawrence shaped imprint in the wall for a long time. I broke up the fight because everyone else was just kind of standing around, and I was like, dude, and Eric was like nowhere to be found. Eventually Eric came around, and Eric saw me holding the guy and goes, "Shahyan, are you fighting?" And I go, "Do you think I would fight?" And he was like, "That's what was so surprising." He was like, "You're such a fucking pacifist and you're so peaceful, like I never think you would fight." And I was like, "No, Lawrence was fighting." He goes, "Oh, that makes sense."
Yeah, that adds up. Yeah.
So for a while, there was a Lawrence-shaped hole in the wall, and like whenever Lawrence and Lawrence wasn't in the wrong there. He did something shitty, but the dude blew up. Then Lawrence kind of like
talking about
back.
bad choices, right? It's two people making small bad decisions that turn into a bigger problem.
Yeah, but also like
that guy shouldn't have been doing that, and then
Lawrence maybe shouldn't have touched a man he doesn't know.
Exactly, right? Yeah. But that's the way the world works, right? You're going to make some bad calls.
And I remember afterwards, Lawrence was like, "I don't know what the fuck that dude's problem was. Like, he just blew up at me out of nowhere. I just walked by. I was trying to move past him. And I was like, okay, what really happened?" He goes, "I was trying to move past him and I tapped him." And I go, "Okay, what really happened?" "I just moved past him and I tapped him on the stomach." And I go, "See, Lawrence,
the stomach."
I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "You don't touch people you don't know." I was like,
if you gave a little on the shoulder, "Hey, pardon me, excuse me."
Yeah,
people,
but it was
belly tap.
It was insult driven. It was like, "Hey, get the fuck out of my way."
The guy probably had a little bit of a beer belly, right? Tapping on that. Hey, chubby.
Yeah. And I guarantee you, whatever Lawrence told me, he said he probably eventually came out. I don't remember exactly what he said, but it wasn't just like, "Oh, excuse me, sir." It was probably just like, it was probably something with a little stank on it. The guy just didn't like the sound of it.
Well, I've seen him personally handle a couple of hecklers and things from the stage, and it's like when he wants to turn it on, he can be a fucking asshole.
Oh yeah,
and it's funny when it's on the stage,
Yeah.
but that's always the scary part of what y'all do. It's like, how far are you going to take that? Because these people can just meet you outside
Sure.
if you really make them upset, you
Yeah.
know. And I think obviously he's getting better at it now. Now he's getting more mature and getting a more clear head, but it's always in there.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like careful, you know. And but again, it's like you said, you don't want the pristine, polished person will never be good at what y'all do. It's going to be very difficult.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe the closest thing is like a Seinfeld, right?
A statesman is not going to become a comic, right? Because they're not willing to. There's a lot of people who don't want their skeletons out of their closet, and they're going to show, like, they're always going to present themselves in the best light.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, but that's just not funny. I mean, no one's going to go on stage and be, gorgeous, successful, accomplished, and talk about it, and us be like, oh yeah. So like, what? Like, unless you're doing a fucking TED talk or you're just stroking your own ego on stage, like, no, people want to go on. People want to see things that they haven't seen, hear things they haven't heard come out of someone's mouth that maybe they can relate to a little bit. I mean, there's really no math about it. It's not entertaining to talk about your successes. It's more entertaining to talk about all the bad shit.
On that subject then.
Sure.
Because you are a very fit, good-looking guy.
Thanks, man.
Do you ever worry that is a detriment when you're up there?
No, because there are several other ones.
Like, well, yeah, I mean,
so it's funny that
but you know what I mean? Like there is a, like, I think especially now that comedy becomes more popular, and then with places like Austin exploding, there becomes this stereotype of like it's cool to like not have it together, right?
Yeah.
Just like we were talking about. And then you show up and it's like you're talking about meditation apps, and you're going to the gym, and it's like you're trying to, like, I'm keeping it on the rails here as much as I can.
this is a topic that I kind of hoped we would come to, because there's like a notion, and I struggle with this a lot, because like the notion is that if you are the most successful stand-ups are the least put together. You're the people who they're road dogs, they're like career alcohol abusers, drug users, but they're just insanely funny on stage. They're undeniably good, but man, can they just not hold it together. They're still living paycheck to paycheck. Some of them are fortunately successful enough to make buku bucks and foster this habit and all this kind of stuff. And I feel like sometimes, well, before I say this, I will say that when I first started comedy, I don't remember who it was. For some reason, Tony Campion is popping into my head. But I think it was either Tony or someone else that was, this was like 9 years ago. They were like, you're too fit and attractive to do stand-up. And I didn't really like internalize that. I wasn't just like, oh, he must be right, and I go home kicking rocks. I was just like, okay, that's fucking stupid. Because I know several off the top of my head famous attractive comedians.
Yeah.
At the time, there was like Matthew Broussard. There was, arguably like Daniel Tosh is not unattractive or unfit.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, there are plenty of good-looking comics.
Yeah.
What you're saying
Anthony
is
Jeselnik.
Yeah, I was like, what you're saying is bullshit. This isn't kind of like, I feel like you just feel bad about yourself, and you're just kind of like maybe like projecting something onto me. I don't know what's going on here. But then from there, I always kind of had the sense that I had to almost kind of like ruffle my hair up and be a little more rough than I lead on, because I do, like, I'm a well put together person. I pay all my credit card bills on time. I pay my house notes. I've paid my car in full cash with money that I earned. You're working jobs that I've always held down for several years. Like, for all intents and purposes, I'm a stitched up and put together dude. I'm not like rage drinking on a Wednesday and like living in a roach infested apartment. I live with my wife in a 2-bedroom condo. We have a Bichon that's 15 years old that we have the money to keep alive.
Yeah.
Like we're doing pretty well we just went to Italy for a week and a half. Like we have the money to be able to do the stuff we want to do, but every once in a while I still feel like I gotta kind of play myself down, because what I've kind of discovered, and this is just kind of like it's kind of a hang up in my own head. People don't want to be around people who make them feel worse. And I think that's generally true, but I think when you're a little bit more put together and accomplished, and I'm not trying to stroke my own ego, but if you have your shit together and I'm hanging out with someone who's like living in that roach infested apartment, or like, always drinks and chain smokes and is out of shape and stuff like that, they don't want to be around someone like me, because I remind them of the things that they should be doing in some instances, but they're not. But truth be told, like, I'm cut from the same cloth. Like, this stuff didn't fall in my lap.
I know what you mean. My wife and I, we both have successful careers, and we're not like wealthy beyond means, but we are solidly in middle class right now. We're doing fine.
You can go out of town and it not break your bank.
Yeah.
Right.
And, we have friends and family members that have not made the same choices we have. And you get a little uncomfortable sometimes. Like if it comes time to buy like a new car or something, it's like now, because I grew up in a small town, we didn't have much money. And I still have that chip on my shoulder of like, I don't want to talk about what we're about to do and make them feel bad.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I know what you mean. It's
lot.
that feeling of like, like I'm Bezos here building a yacht. It's like, no, we're just talking about buying a Toyota, but I don't want to seem flashy. Okay.
My 01 4Runner that I bought.
Oh, I saw that when you pulled up. That's a great car.
So I bought it cash. It was $9,000 cash. And so me saying that to another comic who doesn't have $70 to their name, me being like, oh yeah, on a whim, I brought a checkbook to a dealership and wrote another gentleman a $9,500 check, and and the funds were good. And believe it or not, I wasn't even bankrupt after that. Like I still had more money in the account. Like
Emily was just on the show, and we were talking about that, about how like this false idea that you have to struggle to be good. Yeah. And it's like, no, if you get your shit together to where you can work on these things all the time, you're probably going to be better off.
Yeah.
Right. The struggle, like, great. So you're doing Uber for 4 years, and now all you're doing is talking about Uber all the time.
Yeah.
It's like whereas it's like, you being married, going to Italy, doing these, it's like you're having real experiences that now might actually translate into bits somehow.
Yeah, and they will. Because trust me, the recorder was running while we were in Italy. Like,
and you're not thinking like, God, I hope I can pay this fucking electric bill. What am I going to have to do the next 3 days to make sure this bill gets paid? Instead of being able to like take a gig, go to an open mic, write something.
Yeah.
And so I think that whole, like, if you suffered just because that was your only way. Yeah. Right. It's like I think like Tiffany Haddish is one of those. Like she went out, lived in the car for a minute, but was like, I am not doing this forever.
Yeah.
I'm going to become a comic.
Yeah.
But now I feel like there's this weird thing of like, oh, I'm going to go live in my car for like a year, and it's like nobody wants to do that.
Yeah, you're fucking insane.
Yeah.
Like, why? Like that's so uncomfortable and it's so dumb, and it's like it's not needed if you have options. I mean, so I think also some people maybe don't rely on some support systems that they don't even know they have, and they're just like, I'm just going to suffer because I'm lashing myself to like get more bits and like suffer more to like to do more like raw comedy and stuff like that. And I might be off the mark here, but like I don't think that it's necessary to suffer. I don't think that if you are successful that we should necessarily need to hide it. By the same token, I'm not going on stage and like opening with how much is in my checking account, but like.
But again, when we're talking about the car that you bought that was new to you, it's a used Toyota.
Yeah. It was a 20-year-old car.
Yeah, it's like this is not a glamorous. This is a practical purchase that you saved up and bought. So, but yeah,
I bought it from a Euro lot, and I didn't want to finance it with a fucking guy in Garland. Like, like I would rather just pay it outright.
We'll find interest rate.
Yeah. He was just like, we can. Yeah, the interest rate will vary. I was like, bitch, no, it won't. I'm paying it cash right now because I don't trust your ass.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big difference. But no. And then look at the freedom that allows you to have, right?
Yeah, it does. And the one area where I think like, it seems glamorous to be disheveled and in a bad place, and it'll add to your comedy and it'll make you more gritty and more raw. And then the flip side of that, having your life together and like possibly being partnered up, booed up with a boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, whatever. I think the side that is a little bit more raw and crazy probably gets in a little bit more trouble and probably has anecdotally has a lot of crazy stuff that happens to them. And this is just kind of stuff that I've noticed firsthand. And the people who like your me's, your Alvins, like you're the people who are married with specifically with partner. Maybe this is more like in the relationship realm, not necessarily that you have a messed up life and you're just like a raging alcoholic, but like the comics who are single and the comics who are tethered. I do think that there's somewhat of a discernible difference there because there are like I can't just like if I were like this weekend. Well, I'm working with Helen Hong, so I don't think she's gonna like take me on the road with her. But let's say I was working because I've worked with her several times. She's fantastic. But like when she comes to Dallas, I just work with her. But let's say another comic comes through and they absolutely love me and they're like, I want to take you on the road with me. That conversation has to be filtered through one other person.
Yeah,
I have to like I now have to be. I can't just instinctively say yes. Where like. Maybe some of these guys in Austin, the names are kind of like Tony Casillas, like all great comics, all people who are really like, but they can just at the drop of a hat because they don't have anyone else to answer to in their life, and they're completely independent, and their lives are in varying degrees of success as far as finances and whatever they're doing, but that like. That's the one area, and definitely if you have obviously if you're married and have kids, that's like an additional layer of something, right? So like I think that causes friction, but then every single time I get on this thought, because I get in these thought tracks and these loops that really kind of get me frustrated and upset. And of course, it's what I credit any lack of success that I have to. I'm like, oh, well, I'm not successful because of this, that, and the other. I'm not successful because I'm not like in the dumps enough. No, that's foolish. You can look at this person, look at this person. This comic was an engineer before they hit it big. This comic was a doctor before they hit it big. Like, you can have a put together career. Shut up, Shahyan. I go, okay, cool. All right, well, and I've had these thoughts, being candid, and if Katie listens to this, I apologize. But like, because I'm married, I can't just like up and go to LA or just go do 3 weeks in New York or something like that because I have to filter that decision through someone else. No, that's foolish. Jim Gaffigan in tow had 6 kids as he was going up. Louis C.K. was married with 2 children while he was blowing up in the 40-year run-up. The 40-year run-up. People forget that about Louis. Like say what you will about his past and stuff like that, he's still kind of in one of my top. To me, there was no one better. And pre-scandal, he was like, would proudly say it. I still enjoy his comedy. I hate what he did.
We were talking about people make mistakes.
Yeah, I loathe the fact that he did that. But by the same token, dude had a 40-year runway where he was nothing.
If we're objectively talking about comedy, if he did not have that scandal, the argument would always be: is he or Chappelle funnier?
No, it would
right?
been the Kings would have been Chappelle and him.
That's what I'm saying.
Bar none.
He is just on another level of writing. The way he goes for it, and it's
current Kings.
Yeah. I'm not saying like of all time. I'm just saying like
we're
right now.
gapping a lot of. We're gapping Carlin. We're gapping.
No.
Pryor,
I'm saying like
gapping,
right now in current comedy. Yeah, I mean, because if you go back, there's just too many people. Because even like Chris Rock in his prime, it was just phenomenal, right? Yeah. Nobody was doing it that way yet.
Who did Paul Varghese go on the road with?
Russell Peters and
female comic.
Female comic.
Joan Rivers.
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely.
Like, just like insane.
No, but I'm just saying, like, right now, if you talked to comedy fans, they're all kind of going to go to Chappelle. And I think if you didn't have the scandal of everything he did, Louis right there. Because, I mean, even his show was brilliant.
So funny, yeah.
Brilliant. Like, the amount of... Like, it was uncomfortable, but not in that hokey way that The Office was. And I love The Office, but it was like real life uncomfortable.
Painful uncomfortable. A lot of awkward moments.
That one episode where he's going on a date with, oh my God, I can't think of her real name, but she was on Brooklyn Nine-Nine as Gina Linetti, Chelsea Peretti. And he goes on a date, and she's like, in the show, she's like, younger than him, and she's dressed more casually, and he shows up in like a suit with flowers, and it's just so fucking awkward.
Really
of like this
cringy,
desperate old guy who somehow managed to get a date with this young person. He's got no clue, and it's like, that's exactly how that would go down. It would be that horrible.
100%. And he makes you feel it. He makes you feel it through a screen at that. So like how
God.
That's talent. But like all that aside, like all these people did something while they were something else as well. So like
Gaffigan's probably the best example of like he kind of breaks all the molds, right? It's like, it's not cool to be religious. It's not cool to be a family man, all these things. And he is those things. And it doesn't affect his comedy. If anything, it enhances his comedy. It's his true self, And
then there are comics that like within my lifetime and within me following them, they have found someone, gotten married, had kids. I mean, in Mulaney's case, got married, got divorced, backslid, knocked up someone else. Like, all kinds of crazy stories there. But like that there are, when you see, that's why I really I clench tight on comics who are successful, married, maybe even have kids. If they're famous comics and they don't have day jobs, but for the ones that I meet here locally, like if they have a job and they're put together, I'm just like, please, nothing bad happen to you. And then inevitably, they get a divorce or something happens, and I'm just like, God damn it, it's just like another strike. But like, I mean, the proof is already in the pudding. There's already enough successful comics that have a lifestyle similar to mine that make it not so much of a pipe dream. And I at the end of the day, this September will be 10 years that I came up on it, and there's some things that I've been like pondering on a lot, specifically this year as it's coming in on a decade. Because admittedly, I'm not anywhere close where I want to be. But I don't know what that would it maybe make me a little bit more successful. Let's say I'm like touring small rooms now. Would I still think the same way 10 years in? Would I still be like, well, I'm not this, so I don't know where the goalpost is really. So I don't give myself too much grief about it, but I also wish that I was a lot, not necessarily more successful in the sense that I'm like getting out there and performing. I wish that my performance was better at 10 years in. So there are a lot of times where I get frustrated on myself about that. But then I think back to like some people, they're in it for a really long time before they find their natural, garnered, like authentic voice that really resonates with a broad audience, and that's really what kind of like propels them, right?
Yeah, I think I've been thinking about what you just said a lot about the time in the game, specifically with local people, right? Because, one of the things I want to do, is do what we did with Lawrence with other comics but I want them to genuinely feel like they're ready, right? Like when Lawrence and I were talking about it, he was like, "I've got this material. I feel like this material is done, and I'm just going to play with it too much now. And I want to put it behind me and work on this other stuff. Like I'm going into new chapters of my life, and I want this to be here and start on these new things." And then I started, because he's 9 years in. You guys are pretty close, I think, of when you started, right?
Yeah,
okay. And then I started thinking, we've got these veterans in the scene, and I'm trying to think of like, my time like with this podcast as not a comic, not a performer, I still feel like I'm getting kind of an education. Like the time I'm spending in, I feel like it's still kind of gone the route of like, okay, I just started doing this stuff, so you're kind of like an open micer. You really got no clue. You're learning. You're asking all the same questions everybody's asked, and you're whatever. And then now, I feel like I'm at that level of maybe it's a person who's like, emceeing, and they've learned the ropes a little bit, but there's still a lot more to learn.
I think that's good. Yeah.
Right. And now what I'm starting to think a lot about is like, you're saying like I'm 10 years in, and it's like it feels like for the great comics, it's like great, you're 10 years in, now you've just kind of started.
Yeah.
Right.
Kinda, yeah.
Because you think about these guys, for like a really recent example, like Nate Bargatze, he's this overnight success, right? That's been doing it for 20 years.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like,
for us who've been following Nate since he was fat, like whenever I hear like, "Oh, where's this guy been?" I've been like, "Bitch, he's been right there, and he's been funny the whole fucking time.
Right,
you just missed him."
But he was not wildly successful, right? He wasn't doing. Now he's doing arenas and around.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's really happened over the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And so now it's like he's on this lightning speed journey, and it's like, but he was honing that craft for so long.
Yeah.
And now it seems like. Now I'm just trying to dissect more of it and maybe learn from some of the local veterans as well as the non-local veterans that are huge, and see like, okay, is our issue here locally maybe that people aren't understanding like, hey, it's fine to be 10 years in and feel like it's not there yet. And if you have that mindset of like, it's not here, but I'm working, I'm going on, now that I've got this decade in, I'm attacking it harder because you've learned so many lessons from when you first stepped on that stage, right?
Yeah.
And then, like, if we were to look through your socials right now, you're getting on great shows with great headliners, right? You're not like when I look through. I mean, what you're working with Harlan Williams. You just said
Rory.
Yeah, Rory Scovel. I mean, that's a huge show. He's a great comic, right?
It was fantastic.
And who was with him? Because it wasn't just him.
Youngblood was with us on that
Andrew
show.
Youngblood, but he's just now putting his special out with Mark Norman at the end of March, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that Mark Norman is producing his special on his YouTube page, that's a big deal, right?
Big time.
Those are like, you're getting on these shows that to me would signify your career is growing at a good pace, right? Because you don't want it. Ralph's the rare exception where it happens quickly and things work out, right? That's a rare exception.
Yeah.
Usually it happens quickly and you're struggling because you didn't have those necessary steps.
Yeah.
And
Ralph was a comic who was a barber the whole time. Ralph was always a comic.
Yeah, and it's like I think he realized once he was popping off, like, shit, I gotta go. I gotta do this. This is the shot, and if I don't do it now, that's it.
He went for it, yeah.
And he did it right.
Yeah.
Whereas other people would have squandered that. And so I think now it's just realizing like, okay, we've got a lot of really great comics here that are hitting that 10-year milestone. Who's going to hang in there and then really excel? And who's going to go, I just thought it would be better by now.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's going to be the difference is people going like, okay, 10 years, we're good, but we got to get better. We got to do these things. And then I think when we talk to you at the 15-year mark, the 16, the 17-year mark, you're going to be like, shit.
I would love to reevaluate this same conversation like 5, even a couple years out.
But look at any of the people you love at their 9 or 10-year mark.
Yeah.
Most of them hadn't done anything that was like of major note, right?
Yeah.
They were all like, they were good.
Yeah.
They were getting better.
Yeah.
But even with Lawrence, it's like we had conversations about like, hey, man, the goal is this is a tool for you to improve and grow an audience and but you got to keep getting better. Like, this should be the worst one you ever do. Even
Yeah.
though we're very happy with it, this should always be looked at as like, it was the first one.
Yeah.
It was good, but you could
grow
tell
from
he
here.
hadn't hit his stride of this yet, whatever that is that's coming,
Yeah.
right? And so I think you guys are all in that kind of boat. There's a whole group of y'all that are right at that same area of like,
It's like me, Alvin.
8 to 12 years,
Yeah.
right? And it's
Yeah.
like, all you got to do is keep going, okay, I picked up these skills. What's next, right? And then at the same time, I don't think you guys see it because you're too deep in it all the time. But think about the 9 to 10 years you've been in this scene, how much just the support system of clubs, bar shows, open mics, it's grown so much.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And it is now a very serious comedy scene to be taken very seriously, you know, by people from outside and inside. So the opportunities are all here. It's just you guys are kind of growing as this area is growing too.
Yeah.
Like, y'all are almost in that perfect sweet spot of like, I think, you know, you guys, some of the clubs that have started around here or have been going for a while that we know are great clubs, but maybe don't get their due from the public. I think it's all just kind of percolating and just doing the same growth.
Yeah.
And everybody, the club owners, the managers, the comics, they're all thinking like, when's it going to fucking break?
Yeah.
When's it going to pop? You
It
know?
just takes, I mean,
it just takes time.
You never know when it's going to happen. And it's not to say that, like, as far as how I feel, I am, all the criticism that I'm directing is not necessarily, I'm not necessarily frustrated with the opportunities I'm not getting, because sometimes opportunities are just that. They're opportunities. They're very random and chaotic in nature. Where I find where I give myself the heaviest criticism is, why aren't I why aren't I more skilled and funny on stage? Like, why can't I write jokes with like better mechanics and stuff like that? Why do I have this bad habit or that bad habit? So when I'm really hypercritical of like where I am right now, some of it is like, yeah, I wish I was opening for bigger people, or I wish I was going on the road with somebody at this juncture. Sure, cool, whatever, but I'm not. That's situations that are out of my control. The things that are in my control is what I can do to perform. So, I mean, not to do like a you heard it here first thing, but like, like approaching my 10th year, I think up until this point, and I've been doing an okay job at it, I've been very much being a stand-up comic on stage. I haven't been being Shahyan on stage. Shahyan is really silly. Like, I'm a pretty whimsical guy. I'm pretty wild and funny and weird. This doesn't mean that the next time you see me, I'm going to be doing like Robin Williams shit. Yeah. But there are instances where I will do a voice or an act out or do a mannerism or take a story into like they have a term in like improv where it's like Starbucks surgery hell. Like, it's like a mundane everyday thing, and then something a little bit more extreme, and then something that's like completely off the charts. Taking some more stories into that direction. Yeah. I don't necessarily want to tell, like, I'll tell dark stories that are like that are true and that are pertinent to what's going on or something like that. But I also, kind of, as I was mentioning Sean Patton before, like, he'll start on a topic about like, yeah, a homeless person he ran into on the street, and then the bit will end with like, he's in a cheesecake factory with the homeless person, and none of the end stuff happened, but like, that's where he takes it in his mind. So like, I want to be like, I really had to sit and think for a while, like, when am I the funniest? And I make a lot of people laugh at work. Like at the gym, like behind the desk, I make a lot of clients laugh because I'm kind of uninhibited. I'm not trying to perform. I'm just like being goofy and kind of fun and silly. And I'll just like, sometimes it's clever. Sometimes it's turns of phrases. Sometimes it's wording or like puns or like, you know, a literal joke, like something, or like I'll do a callback to something earlier in the session or something like that. And they'll be like, wow, you're really fast. You're witty. You're quick. But other times, like especially with the other employees and the other trainers, it's just me fucking being goofy. It's just me being
Well, what do you think is keeping you from being like that on stage?
Fear.
Yeah.
That's an easy answer.
But did you have someone tell you like, this is kind of the way we do things? Or how did you decide? How did you decide that you were performing the way you are now?
I think I tried to fit a mold. That was that I thought was the idea of a stand-up comic. And I don't think I necessarily missed the mark. I think I perform as a stand-up comic on stage, but am I performing as myself? And that's
so in a sense, let me just trying to understand you.
Sure.
In a sense, like, if I were to go watch you at a club show and you're, you know, MC, feature, whatever, it's like what you're saying is, you know, now that you have stand-up skills where you will get that particular job done. But it feels very much like I did that job.
Yeah.
but there was. I'm trying to say it in a way that's not insulting.
No, insult. It's fine.
Well, like maybe you're feeling like, okay, they didn't get to know much about me. This wasn't really me. I came in here, I punched in, I did a set, I punched out.
Kinda.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to add to that, I was like, I can get on stage and do a job. Now I want to get weird, dude.
Well, how long? Your primary work's personal trainer, right?
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that?
I started the pandemic, so 2020.
So you've been doing that less than comedy.
Yeah. Well,
But you somehow feel more comfortable in that environment to go ahead and be that way.
I'm also, so like to that note.
Because I would think, I was thinking like, oh, maybe he's done this longer and that's why you're so loose. Like you just don't think about it when you go there.
So like, I think one fed the other because like I get and keep clients because they like being around me for an hour or 30 minutes or whatever their session time is. And they, like, I don't lose a lot of people. There's some people who I've had for the entire tenure that I've been there.
Wow.
Like
which says a lot because getting a trainer is such a fickle thing for people
and
anyway.
My gym isn't cheap either. It's a boutique gym. There's 3 locations. It's like it's not an LA Fitness or a big box gym or anything like that. So, I mean, the fact that people are willing to shell out upwards of, in some instances, like $1,300 a month for working out, like, I am a luxury item at best. When someone loses their job, I'm the first thing to go. Right. And it's happened. Absolutely. So,
or when they just realize like I don't like working out anymore,
or when they're not hitting when they don't look like fucking Zac Efron at the end of 6 months like they really wanted, then they're like, okay, then I'm out. I'm like, all right, cool, go find someone. I don't care. Like that doesn't bother me. But that job felt very natural to me because all it was just stand up and like chumming around and jawing with people off stage and with one person or with a couple people, or if I'm in a group fitness class, then like several people in that group fitness class, which like those are also, I don't like doing group fitness classes, but I'm at the risk of sounding haughty, I'm good at them. Like I can if I can pull a room of 200 people and get them to be completely silent and then burst out in laughter and then reel them back in and then make them burst out in laughter, I can make 30 jack-offs in a fucking gym like laugh a few times during a workout session, right? Like that doesn't take a lot of brain power, but like
well, did you what were your jobs before being a personal trainer?
Sales.
So that's probably a big part of it too, learning how to talk to people that way.
So like I think maybe one of my excuse me, one of my only assets is just a silver tongue. Like I can talk to anyone. And I can talk to anyone about any topic you want. I know enough about a lot of things to be able to carry a conversation because when in doubt, just ask them.
Yeah.
Like I just ask questions.
Who's the talker in your family, your mom or your dad?
Mom.
Yeah. Do
Mom.
you like
dad when he wants to be?
Do you think you picked up some of that from her?
No, because she just is. I think my mom is just a more of a peacekeeper, and she just likes to talk about like other people a lot. Maybe that's where I got that part from her, like asking her about other people. I got the hospitality concepts from my dad because he's always been a very diplomatic person. Which I'm curious what you think about this in the vein of like diplomacy.
Yeah.
My dad is super diplomatic, so as a result, I'm a pretty diplomatic and like peaceful person. I don't say anything super polarizing, and it's not necessarily to say that I don't have polarizing views up in here, but being as centrist as I am, that's just kind of organically who I am. It's just a natural like, okay, let's see both sides of the coin here because both sides could have points or they could be right. But what do you think about the notion that in order to gain any traction, particularly on a clip or in a podcast clip or something like that, you have to say something specifically inflammatory? Like if I were to suddenly just be like, all Asians are bad, or so like,
tell me about it.
Yeah, clip it, put that in right now.
I know.
But like if you were to say like I feel like sometimes comics carry a bigger gun in some of these platforms than what they truly believe. And then they'll come off, you'll turn the mics off and they'll like be not necessarily apologizing to one another, but I didn't mean all that. You think I'd go too hard on that or something?
Right.
And I don't see that a lot, but I mean, like sometimes I feel like, because these podcasts are performative at the end of the day too. I mean, if the intent is to have this go online and to send out and to have clips and to have these clips be successful, you're not just going to, clip up the part where we're discussing Bernie Sanders not wanting to do not wanting to like get companies out of it or something like that. Like that's just good conversation. But if I were to come on and just be like, all women are stupid and the water's turning the frogs gay and like all this inflammatory stuff, that's the shit that hits. And I was just curious, as someone who podcasts all the time and who sees lots of comics, do you get that notion from them ever? And do you think that that's something that is like valid?
It happened on earlier episodes.
Okay.
And what I will say about all that in the beginning when I was doing this, I would think a lot about like, what are people gonna like want to hear? What are people gonna want to engage with? Right? Not on clips, but like even just the episodes, right? And I think that's a natural thing. Like people, what do people want? What do they want? What do they want?
Yeah.
Because I want this thing to work. I want it to be popular.
Yeah.
And I have a background in music, so I used to be in bands. You know, you write songs, and it's a similar vulnerability of comedy. Like I want someone to like what I do.
Yeah.
Right. And as I get older and as I do this longer, I just think, man, fuck that.
Yeah.
Like, I think do what you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
You know, and what I enjoy doing, especially here locally, but like when I started this, I was thinking, man, wouldn't it be fun to do a podcast where you get to talk and meet these people and learn about them? And I've always felt like, you know, I have a knack for... I enjoy promoting things if I can, right? I like to write about something. I like to do a podcast with somebody. If I can film Lawrence's thing, I'm talking to a couple bands right now on our YouTube channel. I want to start doing music videos for them.
Yeah.
Where I record your music videos, but they come on my channel. You're still going to take the lion's share of any money if it does make any money. I don't need the money. I like building these things. I feel like, you know, there's a lot of really talented people, and there's a lot to promote that doesn't get promoted, right? Now, in that same lane, it's like we could come in here and yuck it up about bullshit, and I just don't think people give a fuck about that.
Yeah, sure.
I think they're going to enjoy hearing more about you on a personal level. Like the same way, like when you're in those, probably when you're your personal training sessions, it's like there's that surface level initially, but as you get to know that person a little more, it's a deeper relationship that's far more interesting.
Oh yeah,
you know, and I think that's a mistake everyone makes. You know, like my earlier jobs, it's like I worked in fast food. I waited tables, worked at Starbucks, and it's like I'll tell you what I do for a living after this. I don't want to put it on here, but it's jobs that have always talked to people, and I think doing those jobs, I'm so fucking sick of surface level conversation.
Yeah,
right, and that's what those little bits and things feel like to me.
Yeah,
the clips that I've ever put up that do the best are not joke clips. They're clips that are only something that person could have talked about. It's your unique experience, right?
Yeah.
And those numbers speak for themselves. It's like, wow, that one did really great. It's like Lawrence has a section in his stand-up special, right, where he's talking about how his grandmother died, right? And it's he talked to me, and he said it on other podcasts before, of like, in his experience, if you do an hour-long set, which is what that material is, there's a natural dip in the audience where they get tired. These are his words, right? Where they get kind of tired. And he's like, I want to control that dip. So there's a point where he's talking about his grandmother being in a bad accident. She's got broken bones. They take her to the hospital, and she dies later. And the crowd's just, like they just... Oof. But then he comes back into talking about how, you know, I love my grandma, and she taught me how to do jokes, and he's got punchlines about this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And
just take the hearing aid out and just put it
down. Right? And to me, that's so loving and sweet that this guy is like, you feel that connection with his grandmother. Like, that's a real moment. And we've already gone through silliness. He's bringing you into like his world for a moment, you know? Yeah. And when we clipped that up, I was like, hey man, I think let's do this one. I think it's time. Like, cause I want to share this stuff about how your grandma was weird and racist. But like before that, like, let's show a little bit of the love. Yeah. Right. And he's like, he's been a great sport, by the way. He's like, let's do it, whatever, every time. And, but that clip ends up doing like incredibly well.
Yeah.
And I think people want that, right?
Yeah.
I think there's so much surface level bullshit out there that people are kind of over it.
No one wants to hear a hot take on something. They want to hear about like a person.
And it's like, love them or hate them. I enjoy Joe Rogan's podcast. And,
me too.
And this whole idea of like, everyone's got a short attention span. You get like the thing that's frustrating to me about like Instagram Reels, it's a minute and a half. YouTube Shorts is 1 minute.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, that fucking sucks. Because like in this conversation, I could clip up something that you said that's probably going to take about 3.5, 4 minutes.
Sure.
And it's engaging. People like it. The idea of a short attention span is so stupid.
Yeah.
When the most popular show, I think in the world, Rogan, typically has 2 hours minimum. And plenty of times it goes to 5 hours.
Yeah.
And people watch on YouTube, they listen on whatever.
Yep.
It is the most popular. He's more popular than Fox News, than CNN.
Yep.
So don't give me this like short attention span bullshit.
Another guy that probably gets written in to a lot of presidential tickets. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, I think that speaks volumes of, the short, funny stuff. Like if you send me a short clip that's fucking hilarious of whatever, that's great. But I think people do love the real stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's like, I'm not a comic. I'm not going to come in here and try to like crack you up. It's not my skill set, right?
Or tee me up to like to really have a hot take on something.
Yeah, you know, like the they're I don't think they're doing it anymore. But like the Brave Boys up in Denton.
No, they're not doing it.
They're not doing it anymore, right? I loved what they were doing up in Denton. I thought they had a great show.
I thought that was a fun premise.
I thought that was a great idea.
Yeah.
What I didn't like when they came on the show is it felt like they were trying to get some bits in.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, man, if you want to get bits in, that's great. Like if it comes up and you make a bit, but I felt like they are so much funnier than maybe sometimes they presented themselves because I think they had a hard time of like letting that guard down and being as natural as they can be. I think the natural versions of themselves, like when I would just get to chat with them, I thought, man, these are great dudes, super funny. And I felt like it's for them and for lots of people, it's probably hard to get to that point on stage. Just like you were talking about. Like you feel like you're a comic, but you want to be more of your silly self.
Yeah. Or
right?
I want to be more of like my true self. Like,
and to be clear, I like the Brave Boys. I wish that would come back and didn't. I thought that was a great premise.
I thought, I was really bummed when they stopped doing those.
Yeah, just objectively, it's like, I think there's a lot of people who do exactly what you're talking about, whereas they feel like, I'm at this point, I need to kind of do it that way.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the really difficult hurdle is like, I'm trying to be myself, I'm trying to get there.
You do something to get you to a certain point, and then when that doesn't really serve you anymore, then you really start asking yourself the questions of like, what do I actually want to be doing? Okay, cool. I have this skill set. Okay, I can go on. I'm no longer afraid to go on stage. I get nervous, but I'm not scared. The prospect doesn't frighten me.
I'm saying all that as a non-comic. And so I always feel like an extra jerk. Like if you haven't done it, it's real easy to criticize, right? Sure. It's real easy to sit here and Monday morning quarterback, like, here's what they should have done.
Yeah.
But, just what I observe, that's kind of how I feel. And but I think exactly what you said is maybe exactly like that. You already answered your question of I don't think you worry about clipping up these unless your show is just inherently goofy and funny.
Yeah.
It's like I'm just trying to think of somebody like Dalton Glover. Or no, is it Dalton Glover? No, it's
local guy.
Oh my God. He did a Chick-fil-A commercial. He's super fucking funny. Black guy.
Here locally?
Dalton Glover's funny too, but I'm blanking on the name right now. And he does all those little short movie reviews where he makes them up.
Devin Clark.
Thank you. He is silly and ridiculous. Yeah. And that is his name. Like the fact that he makes those movie clips.
It's also his voice.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the fact that he's taking time to voice over these clips of these obscure 80s TV shows or whatever, like that's clearly what he loves doing.
Yeah, he was bored during the pandemic type passion project, and they're just so goddamn funny.
He didn't think, the kids on TikTok are gonna love this.
Yeah.
And in exchange, like people love it. Like he's doing well with it.
It's fruitful for him.
Yeah. And so I think that's the key is like, however you can get to that point of, like you said, being yourself. If it is silly, then great.
Yeah.
I'll
find it.
Andrew Santino, he's a silly comic. He's not like I lost my dad and this blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Like he's silly. And his special was called Cheeseburger because he said that's all he ever wants to be is as important as a cheeseburger. Like it makes you feel good, but you don't really think about it much afterwards.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's great if that's you, man.
Yeah. I mean, to some extent, I feel like if you struggle for a while to find whatever your voice is, and keep in mind also your voice changes. Like Lawrence wanting to close a chapter on his life and then move on to something else is kind of a perfect example because like the tumultuous part is for the most part over. Things have leveled out, but like nothing's perfect. But he's still trying to be a good dad. Like he truly is off to a different chapter. So
he has new goals now than he did 5-6 years ago, right?
I would say even shorter than that. Probably than a couple years ago. So like seeing grow, like when you grow as a person or when you grow differently as a person. This is another thing that kind of harkens back to that. Do you just live that like vagabond like rough and tumble life where your life is a complete mess all the time, you live in a shithole apartment, or do you like eventually start to grow and live and develop as a human being as you honestly should? We're kind of supposed to do that. I mean, the hope is that you're not acting the same way you did when you were 18 when you're 80, right? That'd be an insane 80-year-old. Like,
well, that's like that cliche joke in like rom-coms where somebody goes back to their hometown for Christmas and then there's the high school quarterback who's still there. He's like, hey man, you remember the game?
Yeah, he's like 40 pounds heavier, still holding the same beer he drank, and his leather jackets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Nobody wants to be that person.
Tale as old as time.
Yeah.
when you grow, you got to change because your shit's going to change too. And there's probably jokes that I did, or like when I started comedy, I was on my second DUI probation.
Oh wow, I didn't know that about you.
I had a lot. I had a lot
not
of
so
jokes
put
about
together after all.
That's the thing. And the only thing that pisses me off was when people think that I just morphed into this, like I was born into this lifestyle, and I've always been buttoned up. And I'm like, you don't know the fucking half of it. It has been. Anytime I make a big shift, anytime I make a big change, like deciding not to do certain drugs anymore, it is a solid decision. There are drugs that I don't go back to that I'll never touch again because I had problems with them before. So like when I say that those are hard lessons. So when someone is like, yeah, we'll grab a couple drinks and we'll just, fuck it and leave the bar. Like, no, I'm hard programmed because I'm on strike 2. A third is a felony. Katie will for sure leave me. Yeah. There's a lot on the line here. And the odds are stacked against me because they say when you get 1, you're likely to get 2. And I was like, bullshit. It happened. And then I was like, okay, these stats actually mean something. So I have to actively resist against them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And alcohol was always a problem for me. And ingredients is still sometimes I'm very much like a snowball drinker where like you kick a snowball down a mountain, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I have a real problem stopping. And that's well documented.
Yeah.
If not by me, by Katie.
By the state, right?
Yeah. And also by the state. Yeah. So when, if I didn't grow from those, then I'd still be drinking like a maniac, taking Tuaca shots at Bone Daddy's and then like driving home from the Cinemark up in Plano to like South Dallas. Like I would be snorting lines of cocaine a mile long. Like it's like, those are all the things that like I did. Someone or maybe the state had to sit down with me and been like, you can't do this anymore because you'll go to jail for a long time or you'll die. That's what a lot of people don't know. So when people are like, oh, you've probably always worked out, or you've always been this way, or you've had everything, the worst is like you've had everything handed to you, or you've had it like you grew up in Plano, because I grew up in Plano, so they're like, oh, you're a Plano kid. I'm just like, that has nothing to fucking do with it, man.
there are different sides to Plano.
Yeah.
Like I used to work at the one of my jobs when I was really young, I worked at the Dollar General over off of oh my God.
If you're on the bad side of Plano, what, Independence, Jupiter?
No, it was in further East Plano.
So Jupiter?
No, it was either Park or Parker.
That's
it's
the east-west street. So Ohio?
No. We were on east side of 75. So go further. You're going west.
Oh, okay.
I'll look it up. But there was the shopping center was
Greenville, maybe?
It was a rent-a-center. It's not Greenville over there, though. I think it's Plano Road. Maybe it was Plano Road.
Yeah.
I'd have to go look. But it was a rent-a-center where you rent your furniture. Yeah. And then it was a driving school, a Dollar General, a laundromat, and a Fiesta
I went
market.
to that driving school. Classic driving school?
I don't remember. It's been so long.
Was there a drug emporium there?
Probably. It's been a while. But that side of Plano was not like, la-ti-da, we are so rich and wealthy over here.
Strip malls and bullshit.
Yeah. And it was like, the people coming in, it's like there was a lot of people down and out. There's a lot of people stealing from that Dollar General. And it wasn't like glamorous stealing. It's like, God, they really needed those fucking paper towels, I guess. What a weird thing to steal.
Yeah. What's anything cool?
Dude, I mean, when I was working there, they sold motor oil at Dollar General. It was like $1.50 for a quart of oil or whatever.
Damn.
And people were coming in, it's like, they're counting like $1.50 in change, like they just need to top off this broken down truck to get to wherever they're going.
Jesus.
And so, to be like, oh, you're from Plano. It's like, hold on.
Yeah.
There's levels to every city here.
Also, there was like, there were traps I caught myself in. Like, my parents were fantastic. They didn't do like, I wasn't like abused as a child or like chained to a radiator. So now I do all this fucked up shit. They for all intents and purposes, did a really good job. And then I just fucked a lot of shit up.
Well, when did you start doing that?
Fucking shit
was
up.
that like high school or after or when?
I probably started getting into trouble in high school.
Yeah.
Nothing. Very few court or like law trouble until about end of high school.
So high school was just like partying, having fun.
Yeah, I was just fucking off more. I had friends that we all like to drink and party and do whatever. And then, went to college and there was no holds bar and, we're just doing whatever we want. College Station, the cops have a stick up their ass. So I was always getting jammed up there. Didn't get in a lot of trouble up in College Station, surprisingly. I kept my nose relatively clean. Dude, strangely, that's also where I did a shit ton of cocaine, which is like when your best friend, who also like is usually side by side doing drugs with you, sits you down or calls you from Austin, is just like, hey buddy, you keep calling me gacked out of your mind and like talking to me about weird conspiratorial shit, and I think you're starting to lose touch with reality. I think you need to back off the blow for a little while.
Yeah.
So like when you're those are the knocks in the head I needed, right? But that's like the stuff that I endured, that when people are just like, oh, you're too put together, you're too attractive, you're too this, and I'd be like, what? Like, you come on. Have
you tried working any of that in the way you just described it to me?
As far as like my rough past, there's
about like the stereotype versus your actual life, you know?
I don't know. I feel like if I could build the context fast enough, I don't want to have to sit there and be like, like, because that's very insider baseball, right? Like, it's being like, the notion is that, what am I going on stage and be like, comics are all crazy.
I know I look so put together.
Some of us are put together, and here are my stats. And this is
true.
Like, it's like, it's a entertaining talk piece with other comics and with people like you, because like when I even mention that I have a DUI at that too to any comic, they're floored. They're just like, what?
Yeah.
I watched you drink a Topo Chico and a Michelob Ultra tonight, and that's it. And you're out here with all of us who are chain smoking cigarettes, and you're not touching one.
We see you do burpees.
Yeah, like you who came to the open mic in trainer gear, like in athletic wear, because you'd just gotten off work. Like you have 2 DUIs, and I'm just like, you don't know the first thing about me. Like,
when did you get the first one? And then what was the span between the first and second?
It was pretty tight. First one was in March.
Like roughly what age were you, I guess?
Oh, okay.
Sounds like 20s, early 20s.
Early 20s on the first one. 24, 23 maybe, and then 26 or 27 on the second.
So between the first and the second, like when you got the first one, it clearly didn't like scare you out of your mind that you did something like that.
I thought it did, but it didn't.
Yeah, what do you think it was that you were like, no, but like clearly there wasn't a change in behavior after the first one.
I thought I could still beat the system again. I thought I wouldn't get caught.
So you just thought like, I got unlucky that one time.
Yeah, I thought I caught. Yeah, well, yeah, because I truly thought I got unlucky. I got caught asleep on the side of the road, right? Like it was one of those like pulled over situation, cop taps on the window.
Yeah, you didn't crash into anybody or anything.
No,
like,
but
it was just
on the second one I did.
Ah,
so like that's where I thought I could. I am good now. I can responsibly drink and drive. I've learned my lesson and taken my licks. The problem is drinking and driving is drinking and driving. You're inhibited when you get behind the wheel. So why the fuck would you do it? Like, and on that second one, I was blackout and I slammed into. This is for the situation that I ran a red light and hit the back quarter panel of a car, spun him around real bad. But get this, it was a couple in their like late 20s, early 30s, very able-bodied, very fit, very like put together and nice. I hit the back of a Volvo, arguably one of the safest cars on the planet.
Oh yeah.
I hit their back quarter panel, no one in the back seat, so I clipped them and they spun around a lot, but both of our cars were totaled, and I had run a red light. So like, I was blackout. I probably wasn't even looking at the road. I was just like down here, and then both of our cars, neither of our cars could run. I fucked their frame up, and my car was totaled. So like, I was pretty much sat on the curb and waited for. I knew what was going to happen. I mean, I was waiting for the cuffs. I just kind of sat there for a little while.
when you went, so you were blacked out.
Yeah. Oh, the moment.
When did you come to? The moment you hit.
Then, yeah.
Yeah.
Then I knew the gravity of the situation.
Did you just stay in the car? Did you go sit on the curb?
Nope. I made sure the other couple was okay, and I was like, police are probably on their way, and I'm probably going to go away. So
you guys just stand there by your car and wait on them?
I knew I wasn't going to run. Like I couldn't go anywhere. I was hook, line, and sinker. It was finished. So like I knew when you know your fate is coming and you've been down that road before, only this time it's worse. You're just like, this one's going to be bad. So I just kind of sat there and wait to face the music. Cops came up. They noticed it on me immediately. They're like, will you consent to a field sobriety test? And I learned from the first one to not do that. So I said no. And they go, okay, we're going to arrest you and take you into the jail and we're going to take your blood. And I go, okay. I'll buy me some time. Maybe I'll sober up. It did not work.
Yeah,
I was still way over the legal limit.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Because I mean, the magistrate judge.
When you get there, do they do a blood draw? Is that how they do it?
Almost immediately. And like I thought that I could buy myself some time to like kind of bleed out my system a little bit and maybe be under the legal limit. Well, I wouldn't even,
not even close.
Not even within any stretch of the imagination close. Because the judge grants the search warrant for your blood like immediately.
Yeah, yeah.
So like,
and in Texas, it's probably streamlined where as soon as they say they're coming in with you, they're like, great, here's this form.
I walked directly in. They took the cuffs off me. I walked into another room. A magistrate judge was behind the glass. They go, you're being arrested for misdemeanor DUI, blah, 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 blah. We're going to submit to a blood screening. Do you essentially like, will you let us do a blood screening? You can plead no contest, and then they'll do it anyway.
Yeah, they'll basically just get like a warrant on the spot.
Yeah,
right?
it's like a search warrant for a house when they have probable cause or reasonable suspicion. Just like when they see a plume of meth floating out of a chimney, they're going to have probable cause to go search that house type thing.
You're sitting there drunk and rattled. Like, were you thinking at that point like get an attorney? Like what?
Yeah, I knew I needed an attorney.
Yeah.
But
you can't get it. They're going to do the blood no matter what at that point.
Yeah,
right?
but that wasn't going to keep me from being charged.
So when the attorney comes in and you're about to get your second DUI, how do they approach you? Are they just like, okay, here's the situation, here's what we're going to try to do, or like, or are they just like, what the fuck, man? Like,
no, so for the first one, my dad's attorney friend did him a solid and just represented me in court, because for that one I did do a field sobriety test because I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And they didn't tell me if I failed it or passed it, but then I still got arrested, taken in, and they still took my blood, and I was still over the legal limit. I think it was Louisville, so it was Denton County. Mm-hmm. So they really wanted to cross their I's and dot their T's and really put a collar on me, so they got both. Wow. So there was no way I was like, what an attorney can do is if they just field sobriety test you and you arguably did good, when they can take it to, if you truly weren't that drunk or like you failed by some weird means, and you could actually fight this and win, they can take that to court, play the tape all day long, say, hey, these are the cues. He didn't fail it. Mm-hmm. He didn't say much. He didn't speak. There was no reason for why this cop should believe this. They can make a case for you. Yeah. But when they get both and they have it in your blood, then it's nothing. That's hard evidence. So the attorney, on the first one, he just did me a solid and just stood by me in court and did all the legal jargon and tried to get my like punishment down to as little as he could. On the second one, I hired a criminal attorney that like had experience in this, and specifically one in the county that worked predominantly in the county that I was in, and who I knew had a relationship with the DA. Not like a weird like buddy relationship, but who I know
they'd worked with.
They knew who the DAs were, and they knew who the assistant DAs were, and they basically knew that when we got into the court, if the judge was going to be an ass or not. And he kind of coached me on what to do, what not to do. He was when I say like he was a criminal defense attorney, think like Better Call Saul criminal defense.
Okay,
disheveled brown suit, briefcase, very like always fucked up hair.
Did you feel like he was good though?
He was. He got me from the punishment phase. He got me out of a lot. Wow. But I was still, they still threw the book at me. It was still a lot comparatively. They wanted me to do more time originally, but he got my time taken way down. Mm-hmm. So I only mandatory only had to do a week. But they wanted to put me away for probably like a month and a half. But like they, because when there's a motor vehicle accident associated with it, they always like kind of go a little harder at you. The couple didn't press charges or anything. They're just like, let the state do what they're going to do with it because this kid's already fucked. So they, he got some stuff taken down. He got my community service taken down from some obscene number of hours to like something that was a little bit more manageable. And I think I maybe dodged one or two of the classes that I had to take, but I still had to do like the victim impact panel, which is like one of the most. Yeah. Have you ever heard of those? It's just like, I'm sure you can infer what it is.
No, I've heard. Yeah.
Those are brutal. And like the repeat offender ones are just twice as long and worse.
Jeez.
And they make you sit through it, like the whole time. And I had to do. I mean, I was in like alcohol awareness classes and alcohol abuse classes with like gang members and stuff like that. It was it's like, fuck, man, this is
it's supposed to be. It's a moment, well, like that's a moment where you realize like I'm at a point.
Yeah,
these are now my peers, or I don't belong here.
Yeah. That was jail for me. Like in jail, and granted, it was only county. I was just like, I have nothing in common with these guys, and I'm like in common areas and in cells with guys who, surprisingly, a lot of domestic dispute, a lot of guys hitting their girls and stuff like that in jail. And, they don't shut the fuck up. They all just little blackbirds talking like chirp, 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 just like they're spewing out their guts about like whatever they want to talk about. And I'm staying pretty quiet and stoic, and I'm just not giving anyone any information. But like every single person was just like, I hit my girl, but like, had they not done this, they all had excuses. Like none of them had learned any lessons. Like all these people that like just like doing way too much talking, not enough thinking. And the whole time I'm just thinking like, man, I don't want to be here. Like I don't want to be here with all these songbirds. Just like
I just enjoy drinking, man.
Yeah,
like,
I'd rather be at a bar right now. No, that was brutal. So but when I have that experience now.
Yeah.
So when I've had friends who've gotten arrested and they have their pending time in county or something like that. And I'm like, listen, it's not that bad. This is what you got to do. It's not like I have this rare insight. And whenever it comes from a comic, like if a comic gets a DUI and I'm able to pull them aside and just be like, hey, you got to do this, this, and this. This is going to happen. This is going to be kind of tough. This is how you're going to get by on this. This is how I got by on this. They're like, wait, how do you know? Like, they're like, I just assumed you had like an attorney friend that you knew all this stuff. And I was like, no, I know this firsthand.
Well, when you go through that, do they mandate AA?
No.
Okay.
No, but actually you do have to attend. I think you just have to attend one session.
Yeah.
But
were you thinking like I need to do something like this, or were you thinking like, all right, I'm just going to stop doing this?
I didn't like AA.
Yeah.
There's a step in AA that I fundamentally disagree with, and I don't remember which one it is, but
is that the religious aspect of it? Yeah, it's a weird one.
It's the one where I will admit that I have a problem and submit all.
You submit to a higher power or something, right?
And I go, no, fuck that. I have control over this.
Yeah.
Like I can take care of this. I'm not just going to be like, okay, God, Jesus, you take the wheel. Like Jesus should have been driving that night. He never drinks. But like I just didn't like how. It works great for some people. There are actually some comics and people who I know that are in it now, and I'm very proud of them for
I'm very much like you. Like, I would think this is good, but the moment they hit that, I'd be like, oh, fuck these people.
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to do it. I didn't really like it. It was too campy, and I wanted to find something that would work a little bit better for me, and I found it at some point or another. And also, just aging helps a lot when you get older, and drinking becomes more of a detriment to your system. It's like,
well, especially as like you make your living off working out. It's like you can't come stumbling in.
Oh, brother, if you like, I made that mistake only once. We have like these like weekly events, like burpees and brunch at the gym that I'm at.
Yeah,
and they're like twice a year or something like that.
Yeah,
but I don't know if I had a show or I was out late the night before, and it wasn't necessarily a rager, but I was drinking until 1:32 a.m., getting home at 2, going to bed, and then this thing wasn't particularly early either. It was like 8 a.m. It was relatively
you're good, man.
Easy time to get.
Yeah.
But just being hungover for that in a group fitness class, and like it's a large scale one where it's like friends and family, so there's like 50 people in there. I'm like sweating bullets and pale in the corner. And I'm like, all right, guys, this is the leg station. So what we're going to do is like,
and they're like, turn the music up. And you're like, God, no.
Yeah.
God, no.
No, can you just, I'm like wearing my sunglasses still, which I was fortunate because I could wear sunglasses because we theme them. And this was like 80s, like jazzercise. So I was like, yeah, I'll just be Richard Simmons. Like,
there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So you said that happened when you were 26.
Yeah.
When did you meet Katie? How old were you?
I met her. We started comedy around the same time. So I met her initially, like when we were both doing open mics, and then we started kind of running in the same friend group a few years later.
But this was long after that, right?
Oh yeah.
So I'm curious, like when you guys, becomes a serious relationship or whatever. At what point do you feel comfortable telling someone like, "Hey, by the way, I got these 2 DUIs"?
I told her probably. Whenever it came up in conversation,
like you didn't worry about hiding it or anything. It just kind of came out.
I didn't like sit her down and be like, "Oh, this restaurant's really nice. By the way, I have 2 DUI." Like I didn't just like blindside her with it.
Yeah.
But like, when you guys are dating, you have the the cute like, oh, have you ever tried like cocaine? Yeah. Well, have you ever been arrested? Oh, yeah. Here's the thing. Like a few.
Yeah, but is that not was that not nerve wracking? Thinking like, I'm going to tell her this, and like,
I have to, because if I don't,
could have been a deal breaker right then, right?
Could have been, yeah. And I have to take that risk. If someone's going to leave me over that, they're going to leave me over that. Like, then the relationship would have never proliferated into what it was right now. If she had a problem with that early in the dating phase, Katie would have been a blip on the radar, right?
Yeah.
But like, fact of the matter is when I met her in my 30s, I was at least 5 years removed from probation of my last one. So like, it was kind of in the rear view. And she was just like, okay, well, I know you've had a problem with this and this. If either of those two things happen again, those are like pretty much ejector seats for me. And I go, that's fair. That's absolutely fair.
That's great.
Yeah.
I have a relative. They were in a long-term serious relationship with someone who ended up having some mental issues that were brought on by drug use.
Yeah.
And they didn't find it out until later in the relationship. But the mental issues were substantial. Like they had to get, state help.
Oof.
And so when they got their first round of help, this relative was like, am I going to be horrible if I leave them? And it was like, is it going to seem like it's these mental things? And that was the exact advice they got from people was like, look, just lay down your boundaries.
Yeah.
Make a clear thing, whatever you're good with. And if they break that, there's no guilt. You were totally transparent. And it's like, that's the only way you got to do it. It's
and
like, all right, your past is your past.
No matter how much they promise, you can't turn back on it either. Because like if they infringe on something that was like, a red line for you, that's a red line.
And ultimately they did. And it's like, they're not a bad person or anything, but it's like these two things y'all aren't going to work together.
Fine.
It's done. And, that's why, especially the DUI. Like I grew up in Texas, small town, drinking, and driving
all the time.
And it's just in a state like ours, I'm sure it's changing now, but, it's not like, did you get one? It's like, who got caught?
Yeah.
Right. Because the amount of times where it was just like this close. Oh my God. We would go to Addison a lot and like, I don't even think it's still there anymore, but there were Sherlock's over there. Do you remember that place?
Sherlock's is still there.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the place where it's like, not many good things happen there. You're just drinking way too much and making bad choices.
It's almost as bad as Pete's Piano Bar.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And, we were like pulling up to Sherlock's. We'd already been drinking somewhere else. So we're coming here about to make horrible decisions, whatever.
Sure.
And the car I was driving at the time, it had this taillight. And like just to show you how dumb I am, like early 20s, I was probably like 23 at the time. And the taillight would always just go out. And the way to fix it would be like I'd pop the panel off on the inside of this car, and I had like a couple pieces of duct tape, and if like you put stress on the wire, the light would come back on. So that was my like fix. And I thought, hey, what a great car to go out drinking in.
Yeah.
And so of course the light, it goes out while I'm in Addison, while I've been drinking, and I get pulled over, and it's like, I'll never forget this woman. She comes up to the window, and to make it even worse, like the window didn't roll down on the driver's side, so I had to like kick the door open, which makes you just look extra sketchy.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'd always have to be like, hey, I'm just letting you know I'm opening the door. And then they're just like, okay. And they start reaching for their gun. They're
the
like,
window doesn't work.
Go ahead and open the door, And she's asking for my license. 2 other cop cars are pulling up. It's like, here we go, going to jail.
That's the double cop.
Yeah. And like something came over on that radio that was more pressing than me. And she's just like, you need to go home and hand me my license. And they go off to some other call.
That exact situation happened to me.
Yeah. And it's just like, but that was it. That was my DUI moment.
Yeah.
If that other call didn't come in,
Yeah.
And that's like, those moments are the closest I've ever been to be like, there's probably a God.
There's
probably a God up there.
I've had a couple like that
Yeah.
where it was like, one time was, there was 2. One, we had just gotten done smoking at a friend's house. We both probably still reeked of weed. It was me and my best friend and my best friend's girlfriend who was crying hysterically in the back because she was drunk. We stopped too long at a stop sign because honestly, I was trying to we were about to like load another bowl and smoke and like roll and smoke. And my friend was trying to we hadn't smoked yet, so the car didn't really smell like weed except for like what we had exposed, right? So he was like brushing the weed off, and I was just stopped, and I was like helping him do something over here, and that car pulled up behind me, and I saw it in my periphery, and I didn't think much of it because I was like, whatever, I'm in Plano, it's stop sign like off Parkwood or something, and so I stopped a little too long, and then I went across the intersection when I was done doing whatever. And lights come on behind me. And I was like, what the fuck did I do? And the cop comes to the window and he goes, you stopped a little while at that stop sign. And I go, I
stopped a little too good.
Yeah. I was like, okay. And like, I'm freaking out because we have weed in the car. If it's not like visible, like as soon as the lights came on, my friend just like ditches everything under the seat. Right. So like and my girlfriend's crying in the back. We quickly line up our stories as the cop is walking to the window. Like, she got in a fight with a friend. We're leaving. We've been around the block before. We've been pinned and separated by cops, and we know what happens. So like, we lined up our stories real quick, and then when the cop came to the window, he was only talking to me. My friend didn't say a damn word. Just looked out the window. The cop came in. He goes, "All right, well." I'll be right back. And he went back to his car with my license, and then he came running back from the car, threw my license at me, and he goes, I got to go somewhere else. You boys have a good night. He just took off. And I was like, and then he like careened around me like sirens.
Yeah,
going.
there was
like,
something.
And me and my friend just look at each other like, fuck, we dodged a bullet. The second one, I got in a wreck. I had been drinking at a pool. I don't think I was drunk, but I was tipsy. This was one where I was like, oh fuck, I'm gonna get a DUI. This was before any of them, right? I was like, I'm gonna get a DUI here. This is gonna be really bad. Oh no, no, no. Because I was like, there's beer on my breath. I just drank a beer and I'm like kind of feeling a little buzzed right now, but we were at the pool and I wasn't drinking too much.
Yeah.
And I slammed into another car, just fiddling with the radio.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I was just.
This wasn't
down.
related to that.
No.
You just happened to get in a wreck.
No, I was. It was an organic wreck.
Yeah.
And the guy, I hit an older guy in a car. He was fine because he got out of the car and started like sprinting around to the other cars in a live intersection, trying to get like contact numbers and business cards for witnesses. And I was like, "Hey, buddy, both of our cars are immobile. I'm not going anywhere. I ran a red light." I rarely do this. I will admit to you point blank right now that I am at fault here. I won't even try to fuck you later on this. Like, I'm not going anywhere. I will have this paid for you. Don't worry. Cop came up and he talks to me and my friend. We line up our stories again. We went to a pool. We just had like a beer or two. We literally just left to like go run an errand and we're going to like go back to a friend's house or something like that. Line up the stories. And then the cop was like, I smell a little bit of beer on your breath. And I was like, and we were 21. So like we're back for after college. And and I was like, yeah, we're at, my friend's pool at this apartment complex. I just had like my first Miller Lite. We're now going to like get ice or whatever the errand was. And then we're going to go back. And he goes, okay, well, we're adults here and we can have adult beverages sometimes. So are you going to get this lined up with his insurance? And I go, yep. And he goes, all right.
That's the cop right there.
Yeah, that's the one that was like, he might be tipsy, but he's not a danger.
Yeah.
And he goes, why'd you run the red light? And I was like, honestly, officer, I was changing the station on the radio. And that was the honest to goodness truth. And I was like, I took my eyes off the road. That was my fault. I've already given him my insurance information. He's collected everyone's number at this intersection. So if he wants to get witnesses, he's got them. I don't know what else to do here. I'm trying to do the right thing. And he goes, you know what? You're right. We're all adults here. We are allowed to have a beer. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. And I was like, holy fucking shit.
Thank God that other person wasn't screaming like, give him a breath. Like, come, like, thank God the other driver.
I thought he was going to try to fuck me
The
over.
way you're describing, it's like that person sounds like the one to be like, he said he had a beer. Take him to jail.
Yeah, he was neurotic. Yeah, I wouldn't tell that motherfucker anything.
Well, but if he was like leaning in, listening to what you guys are talking about.
Dude, no, I was like, I don't know. I was trying to do the right thing. I was like, listen, this is, and I was even willing to accept if a DUI was coming, if he was going to be like, hey, listen, I got to take you in. Because I wouldn't have agreed to a breathalyzer. I had enough sense to not do that. And if I did a field sobriety, I was genuinely probably not drunk enough to pass. Yeah,
well, if it literally was a beer, you were probably going to pass a breathalyzer. Those types. You probably were not over the limit.
But those things are really sensitive, and it depends on when they have them calibrated. And that's the reason why you don't breathalyze is because you don't know the integrity of the cop's machine if they got them calibrated correctly. Because when I had the deep lung device in my car after the second one to start the car,
oh, that's right. Yeah.
You couldn't even have a piece of bread. And then because sugar alcohol.
Do they set it to 0.08 or do they set it to anything?
What?
When you have it in your car?
Oh, anything.
Yeah, so the 0.08 doesn't that limit doesn't apply to you anymore.
No. Well, no, the 0.08 limit is when you blow like into like the cops
before
thing.
you have a DUI.
Yeah. Before, so if you do that,
but the one in your car is a trace of anything, right?
And 0.01, any trace amounts will register. And just to give you a sense of how sensitive this is, if like there were several times where I would brush my teeth, and I'd really try to I'd brush my teeth first thing in the morning when I wake up, and then I'd get ready the rest of the way, and then I'd leave the house and try to start my car because if I brush my teeth last, and then I try to blow in the thing, it would sense alcohol. But in situations like that, when it's like from bread or sugar alcohols of any kind, from like pastries or from mouthwash or from anything like that, that's sitting on a very like topical, superficial layer of your mouth. So when you blow and it pings you that you have trace amounts, you always carry a bottle. They always said carry a bottle of water like in your center console and just swish it real quick here because there's also a camera that's taking an image and a video of you, so you can swish, spit it out, and then the next time you blow, you'll blow clean because you're just getting that like first layer mouth. So I'm like,
God, what a pain in the ass! You just have a fucking burrito or something, and here we go.
Yeah, you always had to kind of think about that kind of stuff. So like, what am I eating before I get into the car? Granted, like that piece of toast that I ate that made it trigger one time. Had I had it maybe 2 minutes earlier, it would have.
But I'm sure it's like anything that was in your car for a while, so you stopped thinking about like Oh, this is too soon.
I always knew I had it in my car. I always knew it was in there. Like,
Yeah.
it was always in the top of my mind because, like, that thing about like I couldn't date anyone during that time. I couldn't do nothing during that time because I was just like,
Yeah, that's a hard sell.
and also, and also like I couldn't. I technically couldn't even drive it because the alternatives. This is the second one. My alternatives were to get an ankle monitor, which can always monitor you at all times. Get an at-home unit, which actually Paulo's had for a long time. I don't know if he knows this publicly, but whatever. He doesn't have it anymore. But it's like a briefcase you have to carry that, like when the little clarinet goes off, you got to take it out and blow into it.
Oh,
yeah. So those are the at-home.
I didn't
units.
even know that existed. Wow.
Yeah, they do. So they got ones for your car. They got ones that are handheld, or like there's a big unit. It's about that big. And then they got ankle monitors that are on you like a prison ankle monitor. And if you consume anything in it, because it's got a little needle that just pricks in the top layer of your skin. That, it's able to. It's kind of the same way that like
it's like a diabetic does it, right?
Yep. Yeah, exact same principle. So like.
So it's just strapped to you and it just randomly is like beep beep and it just stabs you real quick and gets a little sample.
I don't
of
think
blood.
it stabs you. I think it's exactly like how the CGMs work now. Like just a sticker you put on. You don't feel.
okay.
You don't feel it.
I was
like,
thinking of the old school like the finger prick and you get a drop of blood.
No. So those ones they're a lot more like modest now. Like you don't put those patches on. And you're like, ew, like there's nothing to. It's like the equivalent of like having a little like.
Okay, that's not
just
so
something
bad.
against your skin, like in the very first layer or something. But that one is like constant. Like you can't use mouthwash ever. You can't ever have a beer. At least when it's in my car and I knew I was going to be taking an Uber or a taxi somewhere, I could still drink that night or something like that.
Right.
But those were my alternatives, and my license was technically suspended. And my attorney was like, "Listen, the state and the county that you're being charged in don't talk to each other. The state has suspended your license. Go buy a car right now and get it in your car, because blowing into a thing sometimes is better than having that thing strapped to you or having that thing on your hip all the time and you needing to blow into it every 3 hours."
If your license is suspended, how do they allow you to get the blower in the car at all?
They don't. The county and the state don't talk to each other. So like you don't. The charges are mutually exclusive.
But like you just said, oh hey, I got this, I need this, and they put it in there. And they're like, oh, great.
The Smart Start, the company that has a monopoly on the blowers, doesn't give a
yeah. They just want you to buy it and put it in the car.
They want money, and they want you to come in every month to get it calibrated for $80. Like that's all they give a shit about. It's a revenue.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm missing is. So who charged you with the DUI? The state?
So when you get the state charges you from like a licensure level. So like when you get one, your license is suspended, and that usually is because a lot of times if you like refuse a breathalyzer, if you refuse something,
yeah, it's automatically right.
They say your license is automatically going to be suspended. You say, okay, fuck it, I'll take that risk, because maybe you're thinking that you can beat this thing. You can go into jail, hire an attorney, and then get copped out.
But who's mandating the breathalyzer in the car?
So that comes from I believe that was like a stipulation of my probation from the county, but like the county also doesn't know if my license is for sure suspended. There's also a loophole for this. Like you can get my license was suspended both times. One time for not that long, the other time for a year. But you can get what's called an ODL, an occupational driver's license, that just lets you drive at certain times of the day and to certain locations only.
Right.
You don't have a GPS on you like that. They can't catch you. But let's say like my job is here, like the court has my job is here, my family is here, my home is here, and those are the only and the grocery store is here. There's only 4 places I can go. If I get caught in fucking Salina or something, a cop can pull me over and be like, "Why are you out here? This is against your ODL. We technically have to take you in," type thing. So
that's what it was. Then the county was monitoring the breathalyzer. They were the one checking that. If
the
you
county
messed
was
up.
monitoring my probation, so I had to make sure that I went to the classes. I had to pay my probation. I had to have the thing in my car and keep all that stuff.
And the state's just like,
we got your license. The state is like, we got your license still right here. Like they're just there with the hand on my forehead like that, just holding my license away.
Yeah,
right?
But I mean, like it's like, here talking to you, it's like, oh, that worked out. But then if it's like, if I don't know you and we're just talking about a random person, it's like, that's a bad system. Like, you know what I mean? How do they not talk to each other? But
I don't know. It was just like that. Those are the tips and tricks that a criminal defense attorney can give you, and that now I know and can give people that advice.
Those situations are where I'm the biggest hypocrite ever, right? Because it depends on the week you talk to me, how I feel about things like that, right? Because on one hand, we just talked about how like that could have happened to me so easily. Sure. I dodged a bullet, and like when you're young, you make mistakes, and you don't want these things to mess with people's lives too much. But then on another week, I'm like, we should just have no tolerance for this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, then you see the worst side of like, if you are too lenient on these things, it gets way out of hand real fast, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, and that's like one of the big problems with the legal system in general. It's like you don't want people to get hurt because you were too lenient, but you don't want to ruin lives because you're too strict.
Yeah.
And there's the big debate, right? But then you meet someone and it's like, well, you're great. It's like I've known you for a while now, and it's like you guys are awesome, and it's like, how ruined could your life have been from 2 DUIs? You know what I mean?
Probably, yeah.
And then, but then also it's like in Texas, every now and then you'll meet someone who has like 4.
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck, man, you got a problem.
Yeah, or like
problem.
There's really no like depths that you can't really. I mean, there probably are some depths that you can't dig yourself out of. But like if I've learned anything from like being around people like this and being around anyone who was like a career criminal or anything like that, it's just that like if you want to turn it around, you can.
Yeah.
And there's no. Even people who are felonious can like find a job. So it's not going to be a great job, but you can hold down a respectable income. And if you make something of yourself independently, then you can do whatever you want. Like if you start a business yourself, it doesn't matter if you have a felony. Maybe there's some things that will get jammed up, like when you're trying to get licensure for something like with the state or some sort of like certification or something like that you can't get. Who knows? I don't know. But by and large, like if you create something, it doesn't really matter what your criminal record is. That's why like, for me, like entertainment is so appealing because there's not going to be like for every job that I've ever applied to after that my criminal record has come up.
Yeah.
And they've been like, hey, and some of them will call me out like explicitly. They'll be like, hey, we saw you have 2 DUIs. Just to let you know, here at this company, we once in a while host like happy hours. Is that going to be a problem? Are you going to be a problem? And I'm like, no, it's fine. It's in the past, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, cool, green light.
In Texas, is there a point where it goes off your record, or is it always there? It's always there. Yeah.
But it matters less and less. Like if I were to get pulled over now, a cop's going to be like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Well, you got to. Now I'm 12 years removed from the last one, so like they're just like, okay,
sure,
who gives a shit?
The closest I ever got to anything like that when I was young, when I was under 21, we again small town out by Wiley, like past Wiley. And we were drinking and having at somebody's like house party or field party or something. And there were girls in like the next town over in Wiley that were like, oh, we wish we could come to the party, but we don't have a ride. So we're like, we'll go pick them up.
Yeah.
Right. Which is a great idea. And
thinking with your dicks.
Of course. Yeah. And truly the driver of the truck was sober. Like he was, I think at the time he was like into working out or something. So he's like bone sober. But we thought it'd be a great idea. Like we want to impress him, So his older brother had like this huge 4-door jacked up, Ford pickup. And when I mean huge, it's like we all see lifted trucks in Texas. This one was like a lifted truck for a lifted truck.
Oh, yeah.
It was massive.
Yeah, we saw those in Plano.
Yeah, and so we're driving that thing to Wiley, and we, of course, we're partying. We bring beers with us, right? So we got tons of beers in the car with us. And this guy, his dad owned a oh my God, blanking so much right now, auto shop, and it was between the towns. And I think at the time, like a lot of the Wiley police officers probably took their personal vehicles there to get worked on. So they had a relationship because it's still a small town feel, right?
Yeah.
And, we're drinking beers on the drive. So we're like, oh, I got to pee, man. I got to pee. And they're like, oh, my dad's place up here. I'll pull over behind it. And so we pull over behind it, pee, come out, immediately get pulled over because it turns out the cop was, I guess, sitting down the road. He was assuming we pulled in behind this shop late at night because we're probably going to like break into it or something. So he's being a good cop, being like, what are y'all doing back?
Yeah.
Soon as the window rolls down and he smells the beer, he's like, everybody out, And we're so fucking dumb. We're like putting the beer, but while they're pulling us over, we're like putting the beer under the seat and in the glove box, like all the places they're going to look. It's fucking, you're going to get caught. And at the time I was 17 and we had like one of our friends was 16. And so they pull us out. They give him a sobriety test. He's good. And so he's going to drive home. The 16-year-old's going to jail. And then because I'm 17, you're in that weird zone where you're like an adult on some things, but not on others. Yeah. And so I'm going to go home with just a minor in consumption.
Yeah.
And thankfully, they never searced the vehicle and found all the beer.
Yeah.
I think just because we were so like, we immediately got out and like, I've been drinking.
Yeah, like scared. Yeah. The best is like when you see noobs like floating the river, like the Canal River, and a cop will be like, hey, you come over here, and they'll drop their beer, and you're just like, you just incriminated yourself. Like, you dumbass. What are you doing? Like,
well, after we got the ticket, the 16-year-old, he went to like jail for the night. I don't think he went to jail, but till his parents pick him up or whatever. And so they're all going through like, they go to court, they get their suspension of their license, and they had to do like community service or whatever it was. Yeah. And no one's calling me. And I keep calling up there like, do I have a court date? Blah, blah, blah.
Oh, wow.
And nobody's getting in touch with me. And they're like, nothing's here yet. Nothing's here yet.
Cracks.
Well, I did until I was 21, and I got a speeding ticket in that town. And then when I went to the court to pay this, you had to pay the ticket in person.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even like contesting. I was just like, I got to pay this, you know?
Yeah.
And I was about to go out of town for 3 months on a road trip across the country. I was playing music. So we're about to like leave town in like 2 weeks or something.
Yeah.
Get a speeding ticket. I was like, pay this off. And the woman, the clerk is just like, oh, yeah, I see you never set up your court date for this other thing. We'll get that set up real quick, too. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because that was 17. I'm 21 now. No, she went ahead and set up a court date. And like I had to go to court. And I'm sitting there talking to, I'm not good with the legal system, but I'm assuming it was just like a local prosecutor, because they're just doing case after case, right?
Yeah, it's a cattle court, yeah.
Yeah, and I told him, I was like, yeah, man, that happened when I was 17. I haven't really gotten any like big trouble or anything. And I was like, I'm literally about to go out of town. I'm of age to drink now. I can legally drink. And he's just like, hold on, just shut up. Hold on. And he just leaves, talks to the judge. He's looking at the stuff, and he's like, cop doesn't work here anymore. Bye. And I was like,
yeah, because the cop has to come to the case.
Yeah. And so he was just like, yeah, it's good. He's like, getting fucked up, you're fine. And it's like,
that's funny.
Wow. I was like,
that's funny.
It's like, man, I've gotten lucky a couple times, which is why like I feel like such a hypocrite when I'm like, we need to be strict.
Yeah.
Because it's like, man, that would have really messed me up.
Leniency, yeah.
There's something to be said for second chances, you know?
I have 2 of those minor charges, by the way. Minor in possession, minor in consumption.
Yeah, like it wouldn't ruin my life. I think what was going to mess me up then is
those come off your record.
Yeah, well, what it was going to do then is I had to drive on this road trip, and it was going to suspend my license for like, I think it was 3 or 4 months.
Yeah,
which was the whole trip. Yeah, but at the time I'm young, I'm thinking like, what am I going to do?
Without a license? No, you can drive without a license. Yeah.
Yeah, and but I was just shocked. It's like, how? Like, I guess maybe they were updating their system or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
The one time, it's funny. You said how does the county in the state not really talk to themselves? So with the deep lung device in my car, I just wasn't starting my car because my license was suspended. I was taking buses everywhere. That's actually how that's like the origin story for stand up for me too, because I was like taking a bus or whatever. But at some point or another, they're like, you've recorded like no blows this week. And I was like, yeah, I've just been like, I made up some excuse. I was like, I took the bus to work or was getting rides from a friend or something. I have a friend in the complex that works in the same company. And they're like, you have to blow into that because we need to like have some record of you not drinking. And I go, oh, shit. So every once in a while, I would go down in the parking lot, and sometimes I would, if I really needed to drive, if it was critical, I would drive with the suspended license in the deep lung device in my car. But usually what I would do is I would just go down, start the car, blow in it, sit there, maybe circle the parking lot. Because what would happen is it needs to register twice. Like it registers you once when you start the car in order for you to start it. And then usually somewhere between 8 to 20 minutes into your drive. So I would just aimlessly drive around my parking lot so I could register a second one to say like, hey, I've been on a long road venture with no alcohol in my system, by the way, which that second one always tripped me up because I was like, okay, yeah, maybe you have someone blow for you, but there's a camera right there. And then like, what am I going to crack a beer open once I've passed the first one and been like, I'm home free? Like, what is
in front of the camera?
Yeah, what is the logic behind that? Like,
but
the camera's not always rolling.
It's only when you're blowing.
Exactly. There's a little red light that comes on when it's recording, and then once you've taken the test and you've passed, it shuts off.
Yeah. But you say that.
Yeah.
But you know how many dummies there are out there.
Oh, for sure.
So everything you're thinking, like, what am I going to do? It's like, I bet somebody definitely did that.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. There's a reason for it. Yeah, there's a reason why they put these fries are hot on the McDonald's things now, or the coffee. Yeah.
Yeah. That's well, you said you dipped into your origin story. Riding the bus was how you got into comedy.
Yeah. So I took that's like the whole. That's how I found the DCH open mic in the first place. I was living in North Dallas and I was working in downtown, like off St. Paul and Pacific, like in those like 1700 Pacific building. And they I just wasn't paying attention, and I got on the wrong bus, and the bus was going towards Deep Ellum and then to like Buckner Station, and I needed the bus that was going northbound to a further north station so I could get on the Dart Rail to go back home.
Yeah.
And that bus dropped off at Good Latimer and Elm, somewhere around there. And this is when DCH was on Main Street. So I just turned the corner around that 7-Eleven. I saw a big comedy sign, and I was like, the next bus isn't going to be here for 40 minutes. I see the doors are open and people are hanging out. Let's just go see what's going on there. And it was Tuesday. It was an open mic night. And I saw the open mic, and it was that night. It was just like, had I just walked up on the open mic and seen like the list full and like people like doing their thing, I might have never asked anyone how to sign up. But I just so happened to be there, and I walked into the theater as like the hosts of the mic had corralled everybody in to tell them that the procedure to sign up for the open mic has changed to an email submission. So they go, now you're going to email openmic@dallascomedyhouse.com and we will make a reordered list from there. And I just snapped a picture of the little instructions that they, posted for like the new open mic sign up instructions, went home, thought about it for several weeks, and then emailed several times because it took several times of submitting because they would get like 100 submissions. And then, I later went on to run that mic, but like that's how I started. Had I not like, I don't know, I always like to think like, had they not been explicitly giving the instructions on signing up the next week, and I had been like toying with the idea of doing stand-up and had been writing down bits and stuff like that, how would I ever have started? I think I probably would have at some point, but that definitely was like a little bit of a kick. Like,
how often do you think about because the DUI puts you on the bus puts you at DCH, right? Yeah. And then comedy is how you found your wife. And it's like, how often do you think about those puzzle pieces? Wow, my biggest fuck ups brought me to these two things I love so much.
That's why when people are like, do you regret your DUIs? I say no, because without them, I would have been a lot different, right? It would have been a completely different situation. So like, I also don't regret them because I don't think that bad experiences or taking your licks is necessarily a bad thing. I think it makes you more well. If my whole life I was just success after success after success after success, what do I have to offer people who are down on their luck? Nothing. But now that I know a thing or two about addiction, I know a thing or two about being caught up in the legal system. I know the traps that they set for you and how it's so easy to get caught in that web where you're just getting fucked and you get really discouraged and like you seem like you can't make it out of this, and they're just going to keep calling you back, and you violate your probation, and you're just caught in a loop. And I know about all this.
And there's
stuff.
fees that cost this much, and I can't get a job because of this thing and that thing. And
dude. And for both DUIs, I had to get second and third jobs. Yeah, I had to work. I worked
because I think now like a DUI is what, like $18,000 or something
on average.
Yeah,
I've tanked a lot of money into it with attorneys and everything. For a while, I worked at that Grub Burger Bar on the corner of Greenville. I worked that while I was working at an architecture firm, doing like regular like day job stuff. And the other times I just like found a job like at a coffee shop or something like that, just trying to make like a couple extra bucks on the weekend or something like that, just to like cover attorney fees and stuff. Yeah. But I wouldn't know any of that stuff if I didn't fuck up. And I don't. I regret what I did and anyone who I hurt in the process, especially when it comes to like all the the alcohol stuff that like I said ugly things to people, or I was mean to this person, or I was like really difficult and blackout with this person. They had to take care of me. Those I regret. But no, I mean, I feel like it made me a pretty well-rounded person, and I wouldn't be who I am today without those fuck-ups. And I can now, I take a lot of pride in being able to help people who feel like they're just absolutely down and out, because I don't think, at least what I've come across, has been past the point of salvage, right?
Yeah. I mean, it takes
pretty far gone. Like,
you got to be so far gone. I mean, and those are just people we're thinking about, right? It's like there are people who have horrible stories, and they somehow turn into decent people later on in their life. And it's like, that's the, like, again, right when I want to be a hypocrite and get real cynical and just be like, you should have fucking done this and that and that and that. And then you think about like, they turned it around. These people turn around. Everybody fucks up. It's just different degrees, you know? And then especially in comedy, the longer I do this podcast, the more you realize, like we were saying, so much of it is the land of misfit toys, right? Yeah. And then you think about that's where I become much more of a liberal all the time, right? Is because you do think about how much of your life is situational, how much of it is luck, and just you were in these chances. You control a lot of it, but then there's a lot of it that's just, man, you made one slip. Yeah. And if you didn't slip the right way, you might not recover from it. And then you think about comedy, it's like, man, this is a great outlet for people if they're ready to take that step, right? Sure. And it's like, how many people, if they didn't find an outlet like this of some kind, would have just gotten worse and worse and worse. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It's like now you found like a community of people. It's like maybe that person did have that conversation with you when they were doing an open mic or whatever, and it's like, he's right. Yeah. I'll do that. Maybe I'll work out a little bit. Yeah. Maybe I'll get, I saw you had that meditation app. Maybe I'll do a little something. Yeah. And it's like, you don't have to try to go out and motivate people. It's like a lot of times just being in that realm of that community is enough, right? Yeah. And then I start thinking about like, man, imagine if we expanded all of these programs and really put a focus on just helping people.
Yeah.
Just trying to teach that person after the first DUI, right? It's like instead of, the punishment's fine, right? But it's like maybe punishments should be more tiered where like on that first offense, maybe it should have just been a lot of educational, like, hey, bud, here's the deal here.
Yeah.
I don't know if the 20-year-old you would have listened, but you know what I mean? It's like instead of, it's like that whole thing of like, you ever hear those people where it's like, in other countries, if you steal, they chop your hand off.
Sure.
And it's like, okay, does that mean they have zero theft now?
Yeah.
It's like, no, people still take things.
They got a bunch of people with one hand.
Yeah. It's like, okay, so that really doesn't do anything, does it? Like they're
No.
willing to lose the hand at some point. So it's like, there's a bigger thing we might need to address here.
Making the punishment more draconian doesn't necessarily make it
it's like
better necessarily.
Having the death penalty doesn't stop people, it seems, because we still put people to death. So
yeah, although that's like still argued all the time. Like,
well, sure. And then you find out how many people were proven innocent later, and it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And so it just goes back to like, we gotta. I can't get into it because now I'm going to get into the whole like, and these prisons are for profit and like, all that shit. That's a whole other thing. But
we touched on politics earlier.
Yeah, we're way too deep into this. Yeah. But that's where the more liberal side of me comes in, where it's like, man, people are just people and things happen.
True.
And the more you can get around that and just try to, just be more symbiotic with everyone. Yeah. It's like, that's why I get so frustrated about Biden and Trump.
Yeah. It's like you can't win in this situation. It's it's very adverse.
Yeah.
We're fucked.
Yeah, I told my wife, I was like, look.
Let's ride on the rock.
I was like,
babe.
I was like, I don't want to believe this myself.
Yeah.
I was like, but sometimes countries fail.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, there's been a lot of empires that just didn't make it.
100% yes. And also, the Constitution is ink on a paper that we all just agreed to.
Mm-hmm.
At any moment, a large swath of people could just be like, nah. And if they have the manpower, they can absolutely cause a coup. Like they can absolutely overthrow.
Did your family immigrate here through the revolution?
One pre, one post.
Okay. Because that's kind of my go-to thought now. That's what scares me about, and again, I'm not like bagging on conservatives, but like extreme religious conservatives.
Oh, yeah.
That example is what really scares me, is how you had this westernized culture, and then a large group of them decided, we would no longer like that.
Yeah.
And that's their right as individuals to not want that.
Yeah, they can do whatever they want.
Sure, but I don't want a country, like, I like that we are progressing more. I think there's a lot of stuff that's really silly about it that I think maybe we scale it back. Yeah. But I certainly don't want to go back to more of a religious rule.
Yeah, there's
and when you see those old pictures in it would have been like the 70s, I guess, 60s and 70s when when Iran started becoming more westernized and like it looked just like
Europe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then to think now how much it's flipped.
Yeah. It's crazy, dude.
And I'm sure a lot of it's our own propaganda. Like they might make it look a little worse when I see it on my news station. But,
yeah, and like
there's a lot of truth.
I've been several times, and I can attest to the fact that like it is not ideal. Like the gap in between, there's no middle class. There's like rich and poor, and maybe like a dwindling middle class, just kind of like here. But it's like head coverings, pants. Like you can't technically dance or listen to music in the street or whatever. I mean, like there's a lot of like.
It's control, right? It's a way to control.
Yeah, and it's from like religious clerics who think they have everything figured out and think that they're like the next connection to God, and that like that to me is like the epitome of a God complex. I mean, almost textbook. And you're just like, if enough people believe one person who does this, it really can really rattle an entire nation, and at that a fairly developed nation. Iran was not third world. You're not going into
they were the place like you should vacation there. Yeah. It's beautiful. Yeah. It's up and coming, and and like it only takes a charismatic Christian preacher here. You get your Joel Osteen or something who runs for an office all of a sudden. But you know what I mean? It just takes that, and people are like, he's a good man. Yeah. He's like, he just wants to make like no more 2-piece swimsuits is all we're saying. Yeah. And it's like, it's just a little, give them a little. That's why it's like the most recent thing here in Texas is, Pornhub pulled out. Yeah. And it's like, look, we can, like, the idea of limiting porn to minors is a good conversation that should be had. Yeah. But the idea of like saying you can't do, like that, to me, those are all stepping stones, you know, because in the same time we're talking about reducing access to abortions and all these other things. It's like, hey, this seems to be getting back more to that religious stuff that's a little too much.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know, and it's like,
I saw that.
yeah, it's like that's kind of weird when a major company goes, we're not going to operate in that state anymore because your rules.
Yeah, I was pissed about that.
But it's
I was like, what the fuck?
Katie, did you see this?
I gotta put my real email in now. I was having so much fun doing this on the incognito browser.
But it's just those things. It's like, look, we are America, and there's freedom that you want to maintain here.
Yeah,
and that's
Nothing
when
was
I
promised though.
That's
man.
when I start getting back more to my like Second Amendment side, where if I'm not even. But it's like, listen, man, you either have it all or you got nothing.
Nothing is promised. Anyone can come in here at any time. It's just like what you said. A charismatic leader can just be like, "Hey, man, maybe we just send all the people with brown hair into this one special hair dyeing camp."
We've all worked with those brown-haired people.
Yeah,
we know what they're like.
We know they're not. We know they're not the best. We know the natural brown hair people are.
There's a couple good ones, but with this, come on. On the whole,
let's just put them all in these self-driving cars and take them to this re-education camp.
Did you ever watch the old? It's a Stephen King movie called The Mist, I think.
Nah.
An ominous mist. There's like a weird lab. Something happens, and a mist.
Sorry, Stephen King.
Yeah, goes over the town, and the mist has these monsters, and they're like killing people, and it's very quick, and like overnight, it's killing a lot of people, and people. This big group takes shelter in a grocery store.
Okay,
and they don't know what
can't get in the store.
Well. Up to this point, no monsters are coming inside for whatever reason. If you're in the mist, they'll get you. If you're outside of the mist, they won't.
Gotcha.
So something with the mist, right?
Okay.
And there's a woman in there who's very religious, and she becomes very charismatic and fanatical about like, this is God, and it's because of all of our sins and all this.
Oh, gross.
And it's progressing to where like they need to sacrifice someone to the monsters, or like those, or like, if they're not going to do this, we need to kill them.
Let her go.
Yeah, but the crowd believed her. And it was just in an instant, she's now like almost a leader of this group.
That sucks.
And then the people who are kind of the main characters have to find a way out.
People who are down on their luck, they'll go along with whatever they can to feel
well, I mean,
accepted.
monsters coming out of the mist, you'll start believing stuff, right?
Sure.
And
Shit.
in that moment, it's like, are you going to go, she's totally wrong?
Yeah.
It's like, there's monsters in the mist, man. It's like,
could she be right?
so if we kill Kelly, it might stop.
Yeah.
But, how many times in history have people done that? It's like we have the solar eclipse coming up.
Yeah.
There were cultures who are like, when this happens, we kill someone and it goes away. And in their mind, that worked.
Yeah.
Like I think the Vikings, if they were on, like if that happened, they thought a dog was eating it or something was their myth.
Brilliant.
I think I could be way off, but I think that's what it was. And so they were like screaming and shouting, you got to scare it away. And thankfully, every time they did that, the eclipse went away.
Yeah.
And they saved the day, right? So it's like,
I'm going to scream and shout at this eclipse.
in your own logic, it works, right?
I'm gonna do Viking logic. That sounds like a lot of fun.
I want to see you at White Rock just screaming, and everyone's just like, the fuck?
Yeah.
And you're like,
no.
I'm saving everyone.
Excuse me. At White Rock, it would be totally normal.
Yeah,
there's always someone unhinged.
Oh my gosh! All right, man. Let's wrap it up,
right,
dude. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah,
Appreciate
man,
you divulging so much. That was a nice conversation.
Yeah, it's not anything that I was like. I said, I don't really. I'm pretty open. There's no questions that were off limits. But
before we get out of here, because you work out so much, and that is intimidating and emasculating. I wore my 100-mile bike ride shirt.
Saw that
to show you that I am athletic.
You did that. You did the 100. That's like a brutal one. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, if I could get my food in order, which is a big goal this year.
That's in August. Yeah, that's a fucking.
It's called the Hotter Than Hell 100. You ride in August in Wichita Falls for 100 miles.
Yeah,
and then but I was like, I gotta have an athletic shirt, and the shirt is so. I'm sorry, I love the organization. It's such an ugly shirt. Like it's
how so?
They just put everything they fucking.
It's like a bad comedy poster.
They put everything they could on this shirt, and it's like I told my wife, I was like, I really wanted to wear something.
Yeah.
Outside to like, I did this thing, and it's like it's not this, and I was like, today's the day. I got a personal trainer coming in.
I'll wear it for the pod.
I got to flex a little bit.
Thinking
here.
I was going to come in like full like Under Armour gear.
I thought for sure you were going to do a couple pull-ups on one of these bars or something. Like,
I don't think that's going to hold me.
No, I made it. It's good.
Did you rig all this stuff?
Yeah, I rigged it up. It's good.
It'll hold.
No, it won't hold. Don't do it. But anyway, where do you want people to find you so they can come to your shows and everything?
Instagram is where I post everything. Shahyan J. That's good luck spelling it.
Yeah, it's not how you think.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll have it all linked up and all that good stuff. But yeah, man, best of luck and good luck getting silly on stage, I guess.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna let's see what happens. I'm also not gonna put a whole lot of pressure on myself. We're just gonna do what I do. See what
All
I
right,
do.
man.
All right, man.
The I'm a Fan of podcast, music, comedy, and more.